view that the DA has a role to play within the GNU. The DA is not there to gratify failed ANC policies in government, such as that as the Employment Equity Act, which they term is basically racial quotas. So it tells you that there are differences in ideology and there are differences in the policy framework of the trajectory of government, particularly from an ANC and a Democratic Alliance standpoint. But this issue of the Employment Equity Act stems back 2 years ago from the 6th Parliament. It is not a new issue. It is only coming to the fore now in court, but it is an issue the DA expressed displeasure of within the 6th Parliament.
I mean, I hear what you're saying, and it gets me thinking, and it certainly came up around some of the issues around the VAT issues that shows that some of the issues in this hastily arrangement of the GNU were not thought through properly in terms of, trouble fixing and what happens when parties have different views. So what comes through from the ANC part? Do you understand what Helen Zille said, that effectively they can be player and they can be judge at the same time within the GNU?
The ANC seems to differ with that particular standpoint of the Democratic Alliance. Because the Democratic Alliance, there are some who are wholeheartedly in government. There are some who are members of parliament who know the DA as an opposition party and not a party in government. That's where the DA is failing to transition from an opposition party to a governing party nationally. They are failing to transition in that particular aspect, but at the same time, the ANC's failure is that they've always used Parliament as a rubber stamp of all of the government, or of all of the executive plans that they seek to implement, and they just use Parliament as a rubber stamp for a policy framework perspective, noting that the ANC had a majority at the time. But noting today what Helen Zille said, she also basically went clear to say that the clearinghouse chaired by the Deputy President is a waste of time. Nothing gets cleared within that particular structure that was constructed from a policy framework perspective where there is disagreements within the GNU partners, but that has seemingly fallen through the cracks and is viewed as very useless by all political parties within the GNU, and there's no mechanism now to clear differences between the two biggest organizations within the government of national unity. Hence you saw the smaller parties moving with the African National Congress. So it's going to be rather interesting if the GNU is to be reconstituted, how that reconstitution will ultimately work with the ANC caucus. Basically saying that the party must now decide and work only with smaller parties, chuck out the DA, don't work with the EFF, don't work with the MK, but choose all of the smaller parties in parliament. But that will make the president of the country, Cyril Ramaphosa, vulnerable to a motion of no confidence should one of the smaller parties disagree with the ANC and the ANC fails to have that 50+1 majority in parliament.
Okay, that's interesting. So you're saying with the smaller parties, they could get the numbers just creeping over the line with one argument and you could get extreme volatility, right? Fine, point taken. But your point about the clearinghouse, and I think you're also quoting Helen Zille saying it's useless and there's no mechanism at the moment. So does that already not show you that it renders the GNU as we know it now extremely vulnerable? It's like, I'm trying to understand, it's like playing a game, playing a game of rugby without any clear-cut rules, in terms of what happens if there's a deadlock and we go into extra time or a penalty shootout. It's as crazy as that, isn't it?
It is very rocky within the GNU, particularly between the ANC and the Democratic Alliance. ANC leaders are fed up with the behavior of the Democratic Alliance, and the DA is also fed up with the ANC not budging and not giving it a piece of the pie when it comes to the policy and the economic trajectory of the country. So there is frustration from both parties. Whether they can iron their differences out or not is going to be rather interesting. But what is certainly clear is that the business fraternity, or particular segments of the big business fraternity, do want to see the relationship of the ANC and the Democratic Alliance continuing. But business does not dictate the political trajectory of the country, in the words of President Cyril Ramaphosa. So it's going to be rather interesting of whether this relationship can be patched up to work or it has reached its end of lifespan.
Now, interestingly enough, Fikile Mbalula, the SG of the ANC, making an point, and I'm reading in a part of his statement that appears on the SABC News website, right? He said a lot of things, right? But here's the one that's interesting. Members of the ANC must be disciplined. They must respect their own party. Leaking information to the media is detrimental to the cohesion of our movement because that leakage is a distortion. And I've said to the media that there is no caucus of the ANC that can revolt against the ANC. I mean, it's very clear. The fact that he had to raise it suggests it is happening. There are leakages from within the ANC from people who are dissatisfied with the ANC-DA alliance.
There are leakages everywhere. There are those within the Democratic Alliance who are not particularly happy with the Democratic Alliance and its relationship with the African National Congress at this point in time. And I'll put it categorically here. The action of Helen Zille within the DA, how it's working with the African National Congress.
We may just have lost some Kello just at the very end there. Okay, I'll tell you what. Let's leave it at that because I think just that line just gone horribly wrong. But I think we got the gist of what he's saying. I think that the fundamental part, maybe I'll leave you with just for the moment, is this: if there are leakages from both within the DA and the ANC, and yet the leadership, no matter how much they argue, every second they'll come back and show their commitment to the GNU. The question is there continued involvement of the DA within the GNU to the interest of the DA? That means, does it serve their interest? And similarly, do we have a situation now where the continued involvement of the ANC with the DA, does that serve the ANC's interest at all? So think about that. This is the National Pulse. I'd like to get your thoughts. You can call in, you can send us a WhatsApp text or voice note or post on our social media platforms, Twitter, using the hashtag The National Pulse Now.
CFI, a global leader in online trading, is now in South Africa. Access 15,000 plus instruments, currencies, stocks, metals, crypto CFDs, indices, futures, and more on world-class platforms. Enjoy zero pip spreads, no commission fees, and 24/7 support for confident trading. Visit CFI.trade for a secure, transparent trading experience. Don't miss the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda, Tuesdays at 16:45, proudly sponsored by CFI. CFI Financial, an authorized financial services provider. T's and C's apply.
The Blues and Gold ladies want to treat their clash against the Blue Diamonds like a final exam. They are chasing victory. But the visitors are confident they will prevail and conquer the entire match duration. This is the Hollywood Bet Super League. Witness UWC Ladies FC versus JVW Ladies FC on Sunday 11 May at 2:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus and SABC One. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Here's some breaking news right now. Pinky, a 60-year-old woman, slashed 870 rands a month off her car insurance premiums. You got that? Pinky's switched to OUTsurance and now saves a mind-blowing 870 rand a month on her 2020 Kia Seltos 1.6, right? Now, OUTsurance clients always get something out. You could too as well. What you need to do is get a quote today and see how much they could save you on your car insurance. Why pay more when you could pay less? Switch to OUTsurance today. SMS OUT to 30754. That's OUT to 30754. A licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
X at SAFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
Right, let's get global now with an important issue that affects the African continent, and that relates to the region of the Sudan, right? The ICJ, the International Court of Justice, ruling on Sudan's urgent request for provisional measures against the UAE is set for today. Now, Sudan has been arguing that the UAE's alleged support for the paramilitary Rapid Support Group, which is the RSF, amounts to aiding and abetting genocide. Let's get an update on that issue with Dr. David Matsanga, who's an international relations and conflict resolution expert. Dr. Matsanga, appreciate your time as always on the National Pulse.
Thank you very much, my brother. How are you? How is South Africa and how is Africa treating you?
Well, we're always connected to you with an umbilical cord, so I'm sure you'll appreciate that, right? So, first things first, I spoke about the ICJ ruling. Have they ruled today on that issue regarding Sudan and the UAE?
The ruling is going on, the reading, but the signs are very clear. they will give what we call an adversary rather than a condemnation. That is what I can see. Because the amount each person, each place, each country says, I don't know. Bulgaria that sold the guns that were found in Sudan says we didn't sell them to Sudan. So the judges are looking at that. They're reading out their judgment. And I believe Sudan has put up a case. But the case looks, it should have come into a different. My suggestion to them was different, and they did not take it. They might not get what they want. They instead came in with paranoia, plenty of paranoia, accusing almost everybody that was trying to be either to create peace or whatever it is. So the ruling might not come as a vindictive type of ruling, but it could come as an adversary and a warning shot to the both parties or to the party or UAE to say, please don't do this, don't do that, don't do that.
All right. And if it's an adversary ruling as opposed to an outright ruling, that provisional ruling that amounts to the UAE aiding and abetting genocide, what would that mean? An adversary as opposed to actual provisional ruling that it's genocide or aiding genocide?
Because the genocide must commit, if the Sudan government had wanted, would have gone to accuse a state or would have accused whoever was committing genocide. But what Sudan government did was to hinge on who supplies, the supply, the sales, the activities, the transactions of arms into another faction. Their case should have been different. Their case is criminal, is more of a criminal enterprise than a resolution of the ICJ.
Okay.
I've been very frank with them on this matter, that this one is more of criminal. It goes more to the International Criminal Court of Karim Khan than this other court.
Okay.
Because the inflicted wounds are on RSF that is inflicting, as they claim, wounds. Therefore, you can't pick a third party who can say it is not me. They could have bought it through an intermediary of ours, but not us.
Okay.
So
and
why
you said
it becomes adversary?
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Well, you make the point that you've advised them differently, and they clearly didn't take your advice, right? Why do you think? Maybe give us some context here. What has brought us to a situation now where Sudan, rightly or wrongly, saw fit to take the UAE to the ICJ? What is the context behind that? What happened?
They took because they found evidence of arms that come from UAE. But that does now not come to the genocide that we talk about. Who is killing? It is a criminal. It now becomes a criminal case that can be dealt with. And if you are seeking an order, you must prove the criminality here. Now, the criminality is not UAE. The criminality remains the person who is actually using the equipment to create a crime. So that is where the technicality is. And I believe, I'm telling you, the judges are going to come in to say, well, it's unlike the Israel case. The Israel case where there was direct evidence that Israel was dropping the guns on Gaza. As
a country, as a state, yeah, that's what you're saying, right? Yeah.
As a state, the country found out and said, please, we give you restraining orders, not to now to do A, B, C, D. That's it. But this one is, the Sudan, I told them long time ago, you are choosing wrong people. Because UAE will say, well, the guns are bought, they could have come through China, but we might have had some agents we sold who sold them. So it becomes a story. So the ICJ does not deal with those type of stories. It is the criminal element of the International Criminal Court that now goes to find out whether the RSF is committing genocide. If it is,
okay,
now
I got
Sudan
that.
can now take
Yeah.
them to the other court. I have a similar court on Cameroon.
I
where
understand.
they separated Amazonia versus the territory.
All right, let's just end with this, Dr. David Matsanga. So, whatever the ruling is, and we'll find out, I think, well, just now, sooner, hopefully during this show, the National Pulse,
Very
right?
soon, in a few minutes.
Well, I'm sure you'll let us know as well.
Minutes
Anyway, right?
before 5.
What about what is the context of the actual fight in the first place? Because I mean, there's been a period, I think, 2 years of absolute. Call it civil war within the Sudan. What has sparked it off? And very importantly, forget what the ICJ says. How does one actually end this war?
So this war can't be ended. I warned the two warring generals. Both of them are my great friends. I knew them in 1994. I knew General Hamid and I knew General Burhan. Both generals, one was the commander of Janjaweed, the second one was second in command of Janjaweed. When Burhan left, General Hamid took over as the commander of Janjaweed. I warned them. I said the biggest conspiracy that is around Sudan is they want you to hand over Bashir. Stop dealing with International Criminal Court. You are going to create a very big war that you will never come out of it. My letters are in black and white on my website.
Okay.
Now, that war, they did not listen to my advice. They started hitting each other. I still came in. The side that has got, can you believe that now America does not even want to talk about Bashir? They know where Bashir is. This is where the whole problem is. They know where Bashir is, in a hospital. In is one of the countries who is also a member of ICC and a member of a great friend of USA.
Okay, here's the last thing. Let me wrap up with this, right? In 30 seconds, we're talking from a legal perspective, but ultimately, even these wars between, as you said, the two people who are both your friends anyway, right, ex-Janjaweed, what impact does it then have on the people of Sudan?
Destroyed Sudan. The geopolitical situation in that region has destroyed Sudan. We have no Sudan anymore. It is gone. Khartoum is gone. Darfur is gone. And Africa is on its own. The United Nations Security Council is dead. Nobody can think about us. They think about Ukraine and Russia. We are done. Unless the African Union, which is moribund, which is dead, which is useless on this continent, stands up and begins to do what is supposed to.
Okay, I think we'll just
rise again.
Let's leave it at that, Dr. David Matsanga. Lots for us to consider. He's an international relations and conflict resolution expert. Goodness, we need all his skills to try and resolve conflict. All I can say in my experiences in being in Cairo last year, I do know this, that many of the head offices of leading banks and institutions from Khartoum in Sudan all are now centered in Cairo, which goes back to the point that Dr. Matsanga says that Sudan is gone. Khartoum is gone. Real tragedy. It always is about the people, isn't it? 3:30. Here's the news headlines with Ondela.
Thank you, Ashraf, for the news headlines. The Portfolio Committee on Electricity and Energy says it has requested the Minister of Electricity to consider reviewing the electricity pricing policy. Mpumalanga Premier Mandla Ndlovu says 8 officials were involved in the over 2 million rand laptop procurement scandal, and the European Union has launched a major campaign to attract foreign scientists, hoping to lure Americans affected by Donald Trump's attacks on universities. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the M2 westbound in Crown has delays towards Main Reef Road, and the M1 southbound in Braamfontein has roadworks reported with traffic restrictions towards Carr Street. In KZN, the N3 eastbound queuing through construction area towards Spaghetti Junction, and Alpine Road is slow moving through Springfield. In Cape Town, the M3 southbound queuing towards Rhodes Drive, and Coburg Road southbound slow moving towards the N1 Coburg interchange. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Kapele.
So how's this for a predictable world? Orlando Pirates, Chiefs, Soweto Derby, last week Saturday.
Yeah.
This week, Orlando Pirates, Kaizer Chiefs. Goodness, man.
But a different competition.
Right, go for it. It's like a boxing fight. You know when they say the return, take two. Yeah.
It's war.
Yeah.
A very good afternoon to you, Ashraf, and our listeners. Well, tickets to the Nedbank Cup final between Kaizer Chiefs and Orlando Pirates are officially sold out, but there's been a lot of complaints because there was an online chaos this morning as fans rushed to buy the tickets. However, the huge demand crashed the official ticket site, which is Open Tickets, just minutes after sales opened at 10 a.m. The company did say that they were fixing the problem. They fixed it, and that tickets are still available in person at ShopRite, Checkers, Usave stores across the country. But I saw a lot of people just complaining on social media, one being Joseph saying the experience of trying to get Nedbank Cup final through the Open Tickets, marketed as an upgrade from CompuTicket and Ticket Pro, has been nothing but a disaster. The in-store sales at Checkers and ShopRite were delayed by over an hour, which is completely unfair to us fans without credit or debit cards, the very heartbeat of South African football. So most people saying when it crashed, they came back. It was sold out. Mm-hmm. They did go queue at the Checkers, ShopRite, and the queues were literally stuck for 1-2 hours. And then when you get there, they tell you, no, go online again. So
bottom line is longer queue for the Soweto Derby than for the general elections.
Yeah.
Just making the point about priorities. Yeah. Okay.
Well, still staying with football, Orlando Pirates coach Jose Rivero says that the experience gained from the season's CAF Champions League campaign has been invaluable, particularly for his young players. Pirates were denied a spot in the final of Egypt's Pyramids FC at the end of April, and Rivero believes that the exposure has been crucial for the team's development.
They pushing and asking and taking a lot of opportunities to play important games like today, to play games in the Champions League, to accumulate that experience for them in their careers and for the team to get benefit of that. It's unquestionable that when you play in the maximum level that you can play as a club, for us is the African Champions League, your team can only improve. If we play this type of games every week, Chiefs is going to improve because it's playing, we are two good teams playing, pound to pound without giving us a break during 90 minutes, so you can only improve. This is the proper tempo to play a football match, and that's the tempo that you find in the Champions League, and you have to survive. So yeah, it's something, I think that I answered this question many times, and it's something very, very important for the team and for the future of the team when we speak about a very young team like us.
Elsewhere, Trent Alexander-Arnold announced that he will leave boyhood club Liverpool when his contract expires at the end of the season, saying that it was the hardest decision of his life. The England right back who helped Liverpool win the Premier League this season is out of contract at the end of June and is expected to join Real Madrid. In cricket, Proteas fast bowler Kagiso Rabada is cleared to play again. This is after serving a 1-month suspension for a doping offence. Rabada tested positive for a substance of abuse during the SA20 tournament in January and suspended in April. He accepted responsibility and completed a treatment program, and with that done and dusted, he's now eligible to return to the field. And I actually saw that he sent out a statement apologizing to everyone that looked up to him. Obviously, he's probably a hero to a lot of people, but financially, what it meant for him, he lost 23 million rand before tax. And for Cricket South Africa, because they get 20% share of each player's deal, they lost 4.6 million.
This is the IPL deal.
This is for the SA20.
Oh, I see. Okay. Wow.
23 million rand because he just decided, I want to just
take a puff.
Yeah. What a loss. Then in rugby, the Springbok Sevens team in Los Angeles claimed their HSBC Sevens World Championship title yesterday, and head coach Philip Snyman believes their performance was a clear indication of what the team is capable of. Now, Snyman was full of praise for his players after they went unbeaten in the tournament.
Obviously, the big thing that was missing was the consistency, and I think this last weekend pulled everything together, and our whole game came together, and each individual, every player performed. So I think, really happy and really proud of the guys, and really proud of them.
Finally, in basketball, Stephen Curry scored 14 of his 22 points in the fourth quarter, while Buddy Hield made 9 3-pointers and scored 33 points. And the Golden State Warriors advanced to the Western Conference semifinals with a 103-89 win over Houston Rockets in Game 7 last night. The Warriors will face the Timberwolves tomorrow night in Minnesota, and the Warriors became the 7th seed in NBA history to advance to the semifinals and eliminated Houston in the playoffs for a 5th time. Well, that's it. It's a wrap from my side for now. I'll have more in the next hour.
All the drama. Are we going to give away free tickets for this game as well?
I wish.
Okay,
we'll see.
Just checking, because I mean, those who are stuck in the queue, you never know. If they connected to the national pulse,
we'll have
certainly
to
get their pulse beating away if they give them an offer. We'll see what happens. No promises.
In times like these, everyone is looking to save wherever they can. But you don't have to be a detective to know that with Outsurance, you could be saving big on your car insurance. Hear it from real Outsurance client Marius.
The great big saving that I've got, 765 Rand, 27% a month on my premium. It's so quick and easy to swap over. I am part of the Outsurance family.
It's a no-brainer. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. Saving on car insurance makes you feel like a winner. And the best part is, if Outsurance can't beat your car insurance premium, ask them for 500 Rand cash. And make that 1,500 Rand cash if you've been claim-free and with the same insurer for 3 years. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. With Outsurance, you always get something out. A licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
This Thursday on EFC, Africa's greatest meet the Warriors of Brazil on a night where 3 titles will be contested. Amanda Lino takes on Mariana Salles, Willie Van Rooyen takes on Kleberson Sousa, and in the main event, JC Lamprecht goes to war with Luis Paulo Picanso for the light heavyweight title. EFC 123 live from the World Sports Betting Arena. Watch it on SABC Sport Channel on DTT Channel 4 from 7 p.m. Brought to you by SABC Sport.
You are listening to the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
Okay, we'll get an update on the issue of the 22 laptops coming up shortly. But before we get to that, this has been a big issue. The Senzo Meyiwa trial resumed in the High Court in Pretoria today. You may recall it was postponed last month to allow the advocate Charles Manisi to complete the preparations for accused number 1. And that's Muzi Sibiya's defense. Now, things turn slightly differently today. Let's get an update with that with Pearl Magubani, the SABC News reporter who's been covering that story. Pearl, good to connect with you once again on the National Pulse.
Good afternoon, Ashraf, and to the listeners.
Thank you. So what happened today?
Well, today it was basically a report back by Advocate Mnisi just on his state of readiness if he'll be able to proceed and cross-examine the lead investigating officer, Brigadier Bongani Gininda. Now, he's informed the court that on the 19th of May, he will be ready to cross-examine the brigadier, who has been waiting for this cross-examination for about 6 months or so, as he's been on the stand. Last time he was on the stand was months ago. But, he says that there's still a couple of things that are outstanding that being vehicle tracking evidence that he needs from the investigating officer who arrested accused number 1 Sibiya on the 30th of May 2020. But despite that, whether he gets that information or not, come the 19th of May, Brigadier Geninda will be back on the stand and he should be ready to proceed with the cross-examination.
Okay, so that's as it stands now. So we got like another 2 weeks or so before it resumes. Anything else that came out that you'd like to share today?
Well, I must say that, the judge just wanted him to emphasize that he will indeed be ready to proceed as, he was given a few months, over 2 months to prepare for this cross-examination. And, the lengthy postponement were unforeseen. But, the judge has been very lenient on him and granting him all the postponements. So we're just hoping that, come the 19th, it'll be all systems go and we won't have to come and sit for another postponement, and that Brigadier Geninda will get to be cross-examined on what he has or evidence he has on accused number 1 Sibiya.
And I think many people would concur with exactly the point that you said and others have expressed as well. So let's leave it at that then. Pearl Magubane, the SABC News reporter. So we're saying 19th of May is when the trial will resume once again. Much appreciate your time.
Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
Right, so what about those laptops that cost something like close to 100,000 rands each? Clearly, that's the normal price, is it? Clearly not, isn't it? Now, the Mpumalanga Premier, Mandla Ndlovu, briefed the media today about the procurement processes of the 22 laptops that were bought by the Department of Education in the province. Now, just listen very carefully. This is what the Premier had to say about the procurement processes that were followed, the conduct of the officials as well, and then what's coming up next.
The department accepted delivery of laptops not in accordance with the specifications. The initial specifications were varied without proper process by an official not duly authorized. The conditions specified by the bid adjudication committee to negotiate the price prior to the order being issued were not adhered to. Then the department procured laptops of similar specifications which could have been procured for a lesser amount had due diligence been applied. The process involved misrepresentation and possible fraud in that the supplier misrepresented to the department that it supplied the goods as per the award when it knew that the laptops supplied were not in accordance with the specification. Officials of the department misrepresented that a correct and proper procurement process were followed. Officials of the department misrepresented that the correct goods were delivered when that was not the case. Officials of the department misrepresented that the amount paid was correct, due and payable to the supplier when in fact the amount paid was for laptops of inferior quality than those ordered. Officials misrepresented that the specification they developed was in accordance with the user requirements when in fact they used a specification which was developed 2 years ago and not reviewed for the current procurement. Gross dishonesty in respect of the department and office of the Premier investigations. Certain officials acted in a grossly dishonest manner, in particular in that they conducted a departmental investigation into a matter in which they were implicated. They failed to make a full disclosure of their involvement and provided incorrect information during the departmental investigation. They misled both the Premier and the MSC by providing inaccurate information during the departmental investigation. the service provider acted in a grossly dishonest manner when attempting to cover up its failure to comply with the agreed specifications. It is important to remember that the department appointed a service provider to supply 22 daily XPS 15 laptops at a rate of 91,482 rand and 50 cents each.
Okay, that's all the drama there. Let's get to the drama of the DA, because, often you have John Steenhuisen and then you've got Helen Zille, and often people battle to understand whose voice carries more weight. But here's the question, right? The DA briefed the media ahead of the High Court challenge against the Employment Equity Act, and that happened today. So this is what the DA's federal chairperson, Helen Zille, had to say.
For example, out of the draconian new quotas you've seen published on social media and in the newspapers. This comes a long way from the 6th Parliament, when the then Employment Equity Amendment Bill was passed, and we opposed it from the beginning, for the key reason, as Willie has explained, that it will continue to drive unemployment up, economic growth down, and make far more people unemployed and marginalized in our economy than they already are. One thing I've learned in all my years in politics is that you never judge a bill by the intention of the government. You judge the act that follows by the impact it has in the real world. And that is the critical measure. And we're not flying blind here. We've had an employment equity regime which was meant to drive employment equity for the last 25 years. And we've seen since 2008 unemployment almost double, from 5.5 million on the expanded definition to 11.1 million last year. And that is primarily as a result of failed government policies that drive away investment and discourage growth. That wasn't their intention, I'm sure, but it is the effect. And we've done many surveys of potential investors who decide not to invest or who disinvest from South Africa, and they name electricity uncertainty and race laws as the primary factor that drive away investment. So we must judge things in the real world by the impact it has on more and more people driven into extreme poverty, and millions of children literally are feeling the effects of that through stunting and malnutrition. That's the impact. And so are you going to continue tightening a regime that has already had that impact, or are you going to look for another strategy to empower and include marginalized people who need to get into an inclusive economy? The DA is absolutely committed to achieving that. We want employment to reach levels of highly developed, functioning, booming economies. And we can do that with the right policy regime. And that would be real inclusion, real redress, real transformation. But continuing a failed system and taking precisely the elements that made it fail and make them worse is in fact doing precisely the opposite of transformation, redress and inclusion. And that is our...
Does Helen Zille have a point regarding not just the issues of employment equity, but around employment? Meaning, when you ask yourself why South Africa's unemployment rate has soared in the last few years, or 10, 15, 20 years, then you have to say who's been in charge. Does she have a point in raising that as an issue? I wonder. Right, you can call in. It's the National Pulse. So how are you going to engage with me? I'll take your calls right away. 086 000 2032. Save that number permanently. And then WhatsApp, you have the option to text or to voice note 0614 104 107. And there are people tweeting right away. When you do that, you need to use that hashtag The National Pulse, tag SAFM Radio, and do tag me as well, Ashraf Garda. And by the way, love if you're a first-time listener, first-time caller, when you get on, tell me. I want to welcome you to The National Pulse.
The Saints understand it's too late to change things around, but it's never too late to beat defending champions and bow with pride.
He chips the goalkeeper. It's an absolute beauty. It's an absolute beauty from Musa Jamal.
However, the citizens are forced to settle for a top 3 finish. They want nothing but 3 vital points.
Absolutely magnificent goal. Well, Phil Foden is still in a heap near the halfway line, but credit Andy Madley. He allowed City to continue.
This is the Premier League. Experience the superb battle between Southampton FC and Manchester City FC on Saturday 10 May at 3:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus and S3. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
We love rating things. Our phones, our cars, but our health? Your health lets you do what you love with the people you love. So who are you staying healthy for, and how can you improve your health? Choose Dis-Chem Life, the life cover that helps you live a healthier, more rewarding, longer life with regular health checks. Visit dischemlife.co.za now. Dis-Chem Life. Choose a better partner for life. Dis-Chem Life is an authorized FSP 50594, underwritten by Guard Risk Life, a licensed life insurer, FSP 76. T's and C's apply.
Call us on 086 000 2032.
And I see a tweet from Kolani Kabazela saying, from Etaguini 104.4 FM, I currently tuned in. Please give me a shout out on air. Whether you are Kolani, you are now famous because the whole country knows all about you here on the National Pulse. Thanks for listening in, right? Okay, Les in the Western Cape, go for it. Hi. Les, hello.
Yeah, to go quickly.
Yeah.
I want to talk about the GNU without DA. The GNU without DA will be dysfunctional. And then the GNU without DA, where the small parties are going to be the GNU partners. Those small partners, they are valueless or weightless. The reason why I'm saying this is just because if you can see this GNU partner, they are acting as a policy to refill the crack of the ANC. Remember, the ANC lost majority. They are less than 50%. Therefore, they must act. They must act rational and realistic so that we can have a GNU that could work functionally. The DA, if you can check, there's a Qaeda diplomat that they fight, and they fight for vet height. They fight for military headbook, and all those things you can check.
Okay. All right, so I hear you. Here's a quick thing, Les, to you. I mean, I hear your point made that, you know, without the DA, the GNU, as we know, it would be dead, and that may not be good for even for the ANC. But why then, if you think both parties understand that, why are they fighting so much with each other?
The small parties, if you can check the small parties, they are blowing like a wind, which means they're blowing like a wind.
No, I'm talking of the big parties. I'm talking of the ANC and the DA. Why are they arguing with each other every day?
The DA and the ANC have got weight. The reason why, even DA and ANC, if they can agree, the two of them, they can agree. There's no need for those small parties.
Okay, but they can't agree. They can't agree. That's the point, Les.
If they cannot agree, this is where maybe sometimes the GN can dissolve. But however, if the GN dissolves here in South Africa, we are at risk. I mean, me as a black person, we're at risk because the ANC is not representing the black.
Okay.
They're representing the privileged few people in South Africa.
Les has Les, you've made your point. Well, there you are. This is the National Pulse, and just like that, we get a caller and sets the pulses racing. What's your thoughts? Well, here's a comment about Imbalula.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. It's Mandla in Busha Park. You know, I once said it that Fikile Mbalula will do everything out of his means to defend the GNU. He is even now seeing it better to go against his own members who don't want the DA, as long as he defends the GNU. He knows what he's benefiting from that. Somewhere, somehow, someone is sponsoring him for defending that GNU. But we'll see on the conference.
Well, thanks for that, Truso. But I mean, here's a question. Is he going against his own party, or are those party members who oppose the GNU, aren't they going against their own party? I mean, just think about this. Ruben in Mbombela, go for it, Ruben. Hi.
Hi, Ashraf. How are you doing?
I'm good indeed. Right? What's your point?
I can't complain. Ashraf, is it possible we can ask this question that keeps on hanging every time there's a DA, GNU vet question?
Mm-hmm.
Did you, DA, tell the ANC to scrap Broad-Based Economic Empowerment, the Bella Act, as well as this other, the Health Act, the NHI Health, I think?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Did you, DA, put that as a preposition to say, if you, ANC, remove these acts, we, the DA, are willing to revisit with you and support you in your 2% VAT increase? Because, Ashraf, I hear every time this issue of GNU, DA, ANC comes to the fore, there's a very short, quick answer to skate out of the situation. Let there be a clear-cut question directed to the DA. Because for the record, Ashraf, the DA gets a grip on these kind of situations where should there be a thing they are unhappy about, they push the government to say, delete, do away, scrap. Imagine if they were to be in power. I understand the gospel of corruption, ANC, this and the other thing. Let me say this to the voter. This voter who says, yeah, let's have the DA. Because the DA, in a subtle way, Ashraf, is manipulating.
Okay.
It is playing with the mind of the vulnerable. Those they know are in their support, and those they know are contrary against what the ANC
All right.
is.
Ruben,
I can tell you,
Yeah.
let me just quickly say, I hear you, Ashraf. Let me conclude by saying, Black Africans and South Africans, don't be fooled. When the DA takes over and is in power, you will regret.
Okay, there we are. But why would you then say when they take over? You're very confident about that. But the previous point to your question about did they try and do a deal, I mean, there's been some denials from them, but many others who have seen the evidence says, well, that's not true. That means, in fact, they did make a point about that. Right, a quick one. Glenn in Bedford View, go for it.
My friend, I'm going to be very quick.
Yeah.
I think both the DA and the ANC must realize that they are both South Africans and they both love this country, even though they are going about it a different way. At the end of the day, they must make the GNU work. I'm happy with the GNU. It must stay as it is. In fact, they must add more parties because they are all South Africans. They must disagree at the end of the day. They must fight for the betterment of this country. That's all. Nothing else.
Okay, you seem to have worked it all out. It sounds so simple. I just wonder why don't the other political parties just do the same thing, right? Easier said than done. Here's another quick comment.
Good afternoon, Ashraf, and the listeners as well. I was listening to the guy from the city of Joburg. I can't remember the name when they were talking about the illegal occupants of the building. You were saying that they will advertise the building to the new owners without even trying to find the old owners. I think here we've been played. The city of Joburg itself must be investigated. Brandma by project.
They've been played. Many believe, as I've heard so many people say, Joburg is a mess. It's very sad to say that. It's my city. Sure, man, there's so much wrong. Who's playing who here? Let's get the news. It's 4 o'clock. Here's Ondela.
Thank Thank you, Ashraf. Top stories at 4. Electricity Minister requested to consider pricing policy, and Europe launches a drive to attract scientists for SAFM News. I am Ondelambana and a very good afternoon. The Portfolio Committee on Electricity and Energy says it has requested the Minister of Electricity to consider reviewing the electricity pricing policy. It says it wants the policy to address electricity tariff increases in order to protect the poor. Eskom's electricity tariffs for 2025 have increased by an average of 12.74% for direct customers as of the 1st of April, while the municipal purchases will increase by 11.32% in July. Committee Chairperson Nonkosi Mvana explains.
Given the problem of affordability of electricity in the country, the committee called on the Ministers of Electricity and Energy to review the electricity pricing policy to reflect the country dynamics within the electricity sector in SA. The policy is currently being reviewed to align the policy with the broader electricity market reforms. One of the objectives of the review is to obtain a balance between competitive imperatives, that is affordable electricity tariffs for low-income consumers.
Head of the Special Investigating Unit, Advocate Andy Mutebi, says their staff are experiencing an increase in intimidation from individuals and entities that they are investigating. He was speaking in Cape Town at the opening of the 15th Commonwealth Regional Conference of Heads of Anti-Corruption Agencies in Africa. Mutebi says the SIU is often served with court papers in an effort to force it to drop investigations.
In other instances, it can really be almost deadly. We have experienced it in the lottery investigations, where our investigators were actually receiving threats, and we had to make sure that we arrange protection. We have seen it in our investigations, in the Fort Hare investigations. Our investigators were threatened.
Mpumalanga Premier Mandla Ndlovu says 8 officials were involved in the over 2 million rand laptop procurement scandal. Ndlovu has revealed that the procurement process of the 22 laptops bought by the Provincial Education Department was flawed. Ndlovu addressed a media briefing in Mbombela to give an update on the investigation's findings.
Officials of the department misrepresented that the correct goods were delivered when that was not the case. But we are going to institute disciplinary actions against all implicated officials, including the HOD.
The founder of humanitarian organization Gift of the Givers, Dr. Imtiaz Suleiman, has called on today's leaders to emulate anti-apartheid activist and trade unionist Dr. Neil Agat. He says the current leaders are seeking self-enrichment. He was delivering the Neil Agat Memorial Lecture in Kingswood College in Makanda in the Eastern Cape.
People like Neil Agat and other liberation movement fighters, heroes, stood for the truth. They sacrificed their lives, their families, for a cause, not for themselves, for the interest and the benefit of our country, and in fact our continent and of humanity. We've lost that. The new leaders have lost that. It's more about materialism, power, wealth, aggrandizement, ego. All the values that the ANC in the past stood for have been lost.
The European Union has launched a major campaign to attract foreign scientists, hoping to lure Americans affected by Donald Trump's attacks on universities. Trump has slashed funding for research programs, particularly those involving climate change. The European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen made the announcement at a conference organized by President Emmanuel Macron. The BBC's Hugh Schofield has the details.
President Macron and Ursula von der Leyen believe that such is the disenchantment with the new mood in the US that many leading figures in the fields of artificial intelligence, for example, or climate science, could be persuaded to base themselves in Europe. Who would have thought, President Macron told the conference in Paris, that this great democracy, the United States, whose economic model depends so strongly on free science, was going to make such a glaring mistake.
Recapping the top story, the Portfolio Committee on Electricity and Energy says it has requested the Minister of Electricity to consider reviewing the electricity pricing policy. I am on Delambana for SAFM News headlines at 3:30.
In sports, Barker says race for top 3 will go down to the wire and IOC replaces swimmers' medals destroyed in LA fires. More details at 4:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the N4 westbound in Pretoria has a crash recovery underway near Mabopane Highway. The road's closed and traffic is being diverted via the off-ramp. And the N3 northbound in Bedfordview queuing on the link to the N12 East at Giluli's interchange. In KZN, the M7 St John's Avenue queuing through Central Pinetown, the N3 eastbound queuing through construction area towards Spaghetti Junction, and the N2 southbound queuing through the construction area towards Spaghetti Junction. In Cape Town, the M5 southbound queuing towards Cromboom Road exit, the M3 southbound is queuing towards Rhodes Drive, the N2 Nelson Mandela Boulevard outbound queuing towards Hospital Bend, and the N1 outbound slow moving towards the M5 Koeberg interchange. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
Here, there, and everywhere. SAFM 104.4 FM in Durban.
This Thursday on EFC, Africa's greatest meet the warriors of Brazil on a night where 3 titles will be contested. Amanda Lino takes on Mariana Salles, Willie Van Rooyen takes on Kleberson Sousa, and in the main event, JC Lamprecht goes to war with Luis Paulo Picanso for the light heavyweight title. EFC 123 live from the World Sports Betting Arena. Watch it on SABC Sport Channel on DTT Channel 4 from 7 p.m. Brought to you by SABC Sport.
Night Talk with Oliver Dixon.
When leaders need to account, we call on them. When society needs to debate, reflect, and advance, we're here to have the conversation. Join me, Oliver Dixon, on Night Talk every Monday to Thursday from 10 to 12 midnight.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
So we've had load shedding. And we've had what is the other one? There's been load shedding. There's other things as well around, but there's a new phrase that load shedding, load reduction, and you better get used to energy security. It sort of rhymes with food security. We'll talk about that just now. Let's, however, get to an update on the Riverlea High School issue. Remember, we spoke about this last week sometime, where that fire broke out at Riverlea High, destroying 11 classes. Really terrible, terrible story. Now, here's the good news in a way. 4 of the destroyed classes were actively used with grade 11 learners, and now they're back to school today. I believe some plans have been put in place for them to get back to learning. Steve Mabona with me, the spokesperson for Gauteng Education. Steve, I appreciate your time as always. Thanks for connecting on the National Pulse.
Good afternoon, Ash, and to all our listeners.
Thank you. So when we last spoke, it was just the horrific story of the fire. There's been some developments since. Tell me about it.
Yes, indeed. Like as we promised last week, we have already installed 4 mobile classes, which means that from tomorrow, the learners will utilize those classrooms, because today they could not utilize them because we were still waiting for furniture. So by midday, furniture was delivered at the school, and those classes are now ready. Tomorrow, the learners will then utilize those, because it's 4 classes, meaning that we won't have any child in the school hall, because the grade 8 learners were housed in a school hall. Mm-hmm. But then now they have their classes, and curriculum delivery can continue without any interest tomorrow.
Okay, so that's for the grade 8. What about the other learners?
No, remember, we lost 11 out of the 11 classrooms that we lost. Only 4 were utilized by the grade 8 learners. So the other classes were more of storage because they had furniture in there that has been used by the school. Some old, some those that furniture that was in access. So we lost all that.
Yeah.
And the toilets, because the block of toilets was in the same block. So what we need to do now is to provide toilets. We'll give them mobiles which will then connect in the bulk system. But interimly, we will then utilize the school hall toilets for the boys.
Okay. So from a pure learning point of view, then if you run through the various grades, are all the grades learning, and I'm saying that in inverted commas, or others still on hold until certain issues get sorted out? Never mind where they're sitting. They could be in the hall, they could be in the classroom, they could be in another classroom. Are they all learning, or are there still shortcomings?
No, there are no shortcomings. We are continuing with curriculum delivery. They started to a certain extent today, but it was not too much conducive because they were in a hall, and you can imagine if you have 3 classes in a hall, you to manage, these learners, sometimes it's difficult for teachers. So now that we have their classes, tomorrow then we continue with curriculum delivery. So any other thing that we don't have at the school, we, through the district, we've been tapping into the neighboring schools, like in terms of books that we need or any other thing that we might have lost. We then utilize the neighboring schools to assist, including furniture. I mean, in the morning we had furniture from other schools, but safe to say that the furniture that was ordered for the school then arrived. So the borrowed one will take it back and then use the new furniture which we have already ordered.
Okay. Well, I think it's very good that there's been great haste in getting things down to a sense of normality, even in an abnormal world. I understand that situation in terms of what has happened, right? What is the morale of the school? A, in terms of learners, B, in terms of the educators?
Well, educators, they were there at school very early, ready to teach. Learners, children will always be children. Some, you want to be outside to check what is happening because there's some little bit of an activity while the furniture is being put in the classrooms and the media is there wanting to capture things and all that. So the nature of children will always be nosy, want to know what is happening. So we're managing that to make sure that they are in the classrooms and there are no disturbances. But we also call upon the stakeholders because many people came, stakeholders who are interested. I'm talking about the political parties or all other, stakeholders that are, will want to have an interest in the school. So we want to call upon them. We need space now. Can we continue with the process of curriculum delivery? We want to teach. We don't need activity that is going to be disrupting our processes.
Okay, let's leave it at that. Steve Mabona, the Gauteng Education spokesperson. Appreciate your time here on the National Pulse.
You're listening to the National Pulse.
Let's see if we can. We're going to get to the issue of the electricity in a moment, but there's lots of voice notes that I want to play. Right, here's one.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. It's Theo in Cape Town. Ashraf, if the DA and the ANC, they don't go along, why can't they all dissolve the government and ask for fresh election? Because it seems like no one wants fresh election. Things are not working. GNU, they're always fighting in public and they're not going along. So the best thing to do, let's call for a fresh election so we can see who's going to be the winner. Majority will govern alone, without any problem. It's here in Cape Town. Ashraf, good show. Always, you are the best.
You are very, very kind. I tell you what, more than me being the best, which is appreciated. You know what I'd love? I would so love if you and I can inspire us to become the best nation on earth. I always talk about this champion nation, which really means everything works. Now, how can we inspire each other to build the building blocks so that everything works in the interest of everybody? Now, that would be the greatest prize of all.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Mcede here in Kala. Ashraf, some South Africans must accept that the DA is there in parliament to be the voice of the people. it was voted by some of the people who are the South Africans. I don't think there is anybody there who have a mandate that can say the DA must be expelled by a certain party. I don't think that's a good saying, because it was put there in Parliament to speak for people of South Africa as other parties. Thanks, Ashraf. Mcete here.
Well, thanks for that. But I hear what you're saying. I think they were put in Parliament, yes, and yes, Parliament can't expel them. Why would they, right? But I think what can happen is parties within the GNU can decide they don't want to do business with that party any longer. They can do that, but it also means the GNU, as we know it, would crumble. Now, whether that's very wise for the ANC is another question.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Hope you're well. Listen, this whole thing with the GNU and the ANC and wanting the DA to pull out and stuff like that, and they can't work, and the DA can't be in the GNU and play official opposition and stuff like that. You know what? Even the ANC within their ranks are going to court to stop certain conference processes and that from happening. But I mean, the other thing is that the DA and the other political parties that are in the GNU are not there to toe the line. They are there to be in opposition to the ANC and to hold them to account, not to let them just ride roughshod over people. I mean, who do the ANC think they are? Mark from Cape Town.
Thanks for that, Mark. But you see, Mark, what your question is fundamental, that normally you're either a party in government or you're a party in opposition. And even if you're in opposition, you still love your country, you want to ensure that things work out well, but your methodology of achieving that is very different. For example, Malema is now saying the EFF are the official opposition, as you may have heard about a week ago. But the GNU has thrown up an interesting conundrum where some parties are effectively part of government. At the same time, they still want to retain the elements of being in opposition for the reasons that you've mentioned, and I'm not necessarily disputing that. What we don't know is how do they work that out together, and I think they're all battling to come to terms with that.
Ashraf, that comment by the Gauteng chairperson of the ANC, Panyaza Yusuf, I found it so hilarious, really. I mean, this problem has been going on for years. I mean, he's telling us if the ANC has just woken up to realizing that it is a crisis in our hands. It's been going on for years and nothing has been done about it. Now he's talking about 65% of Merimi informal settlements being occupied predominantly by foreign nationals. I mean, it's laughable. It just shows how out of touch they are with reality. Thanks, Ashraf, Thabo, Midrand.
Well, I mean, I think you're right, and it's very difficult to defend against that, because remember when the president went to Joburg and he said he was shocked or surprised at some of the things he saw? Like, why would they be surprised when they have so much knowledge around them in terms of intelligence gathering and they still don't know that? That's really puzzling.
Hi, Ashraf. I just want to comment on this Soweto derby, whereby they delay the game for 30 minutes each and every time when they are playing, so that the supporters can be able to go into the stadium. But now this thing is starting to be normal. People know that 3 o'clock is just be there. Then they leave where they are after past 3, knowing that the game will be delayed. So I think the PSL must look into the matter. Then the only time they must delay the game is only if when the problem is coming from the stadium management or the PSL, not from the supporters. Because of now we are used to other people, they go to the stadium before 3 o'clock. Others, they already know that the game will be delayed, so they go to the stadium late deliberately. So I think we must just change that behavior. This is Jacob in Mokopane.
Well, Jacob, you may be right. What can we do to ensure that fans arrive early? It's not a uniquely South African situation, by the way. There are examples of other big games of football around the world being delayed, but mainly it's because of like train strikes that causes a delay to get to the stadium. It's never because supporters felt like pitching up late. And I do take your point. If a game is 3 o'clock, you don't expect you to start at 3:30 or 4:45, for example. I think that's happened. Pumzile in Newmansdorp, go for it, Pumzile.
Greetings, Ashraf.
Greetings.
Ashraf, I've been actually observing this thing of the GNU. And to me, to be honest with you, the DA is not an honest partner in the GNU. Here are my qualifying reasons. One, they questioned all the transformatory policies of the ANC, like your BBBE, like your employment equity, like your NHI, etc., etc. That is number one. Number two, or the other one, which is very critical, the land expropriation without compensation, And secondly, to prove that they are not honest, they are part of the GNU, but they go to America, USA. They talk about the very same government and country in which, one, they claim to be patriots, two, they claim to be part of the GNU. That to me is dishonesty at its worst.
I hear you. I'm going to move on because we're running into a break now. But here's an important point that you make, right? In fact, some may say the DA is being dishonest, not because of what you said, because of being in the GNU in the first place, meaning all the parties who people voted for had to change their policies to be part of the GNU, whereas the original policy, we all knew it, and that's why people voted for those parties. So they voted for parties, wherever they are, not just the DA, the Action SA, and I can think of BOZA, and just all of them, and then they were part of a GNU, which allowed them, well, not all of them, some of them, to have to shift their policies. So who's fooling who here?
Save and win a car with Spar for real. Stand to win one of 50 fiery red Hyundai Grand i10 sedans. Buy any participating products and swipe your rewards card to enter. Get 200-gram Dow Egberts instant coffee for $139.99 plus 300 megs free data on Spar Mobile, or 145-gram Doritos corn chips. Buy any two for 35 Rand plus 100 megs free data on Spar Mobile. Price is valid until 19 May while stocks last. T's and C's apply.
The Blues and Gold ladies want to treat their clash against the Blue Diamonds like a final exam. They are chasing victory. But the visitors are confident they will prevail and conquer the entire match duration. This is the Hollywood Bet Super League. Witness UWC Ladies FC versus JBW Ladies FC on Sunday 11 May at 2:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus and SABC One. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game. Across South Africa, online and on radio. SAFM, let's talk.
Let's talk indeed. Like the fact that we get new callers, we give a shout out. But I'll tell you what, let me not neglect the regular caller, the consistent callers, and the consistent listeners. So let me also give you a shout out if that's what you want to say. Hey, come on, I've listened to you for like 2 years or 1.5 years or whatever on 1 year and 1 month on the National Pulse. So if you are doing that, tell me as well so I can give you a shout out too. Right? Okay, let's get into another issue. I made the point earlier on. There's load shedding as we know it. And we got used to that as part of our lexicon. Then we got used to, did we? Load reduction. Perhaps you better get used to energy security. What does that mean? Now, the Electricity and Energy Minister, Dr. Kgosientsho Ramokgopa, says the power utility is transitioning from ending load shedding to energy security. This may well be good news for you.
And then the last point I want to make is that we are transitioning now from ending load shedding. We are transitioning to energy security. That's very important. And that's why when we have periodic episodes of load shedding, it's a significant setback on our ambition to ensure that we are able to sustain that transition. And I'm confident with what Eskom will be sharing with you. You will see that now we are getting to a point where we'll be saying we are ending load shedding, and then we are transitioning into energy security. And the set of those interventions I've mentioned are going to help us to address that. And then that energy security means that we'll not have something called load reduction. Again, we don't want to swell this briefing. We'll occasion a different briefing where I'll be sharing with the rest of the country. The plans are done now on how we are going to end load reduction, working with municipalities and affected communities. So the excuse can't just be that the transformer capacity is not sufficient.
The minister has been working hard. I'm trying to understand the different companies, organizations that make up what we talk about, the ministry itself, right? So he then announced a new transmission company. Right, let me just see if I can connect that.
Is that now we have put into legal force the Electricity Regulation Amendment Act, which essentially
around the decoupling of plant.
if you like, the electricity dispenser or ecosystem in this country. So essentially we are undermining ESCOM's monopoly on the generation side. We are introducing the National Transmission Company of South Africa. It's a major achievement. It talks to the liberalization of this space. The reforms that President Ramaphosa announced as part of the broader package of the Energy Action Plan. You remember it had 5 outcomes. Now we are delivering on that. So now the South African electricity legal architecture provides for private sector participation. And then in this regard, I'm happy to announce that working with our regulator, we have now, the regulator has approved the wheeling framework. I think tomorrow or sometime during this week, I will be calling a media, if you like, brief, just to share with the rest of the country what it means for us to have approved the wheeling framework.
Someone said the other day, and I think it's true, because if you have the privilege of, in fact, I've not interviewed the Minister of Electricity on this show as yet, which is a bit crazy. Maybe it'll happen sometime soon. But of course, I've engaged him before, and I met him in person, and someone made the point. He said, you know what? The Minister of Energy is a highly energized individual. He is so full of energy all the time. Can't disagree with that, can I? Right. Well, talking about him, what about the issue of coal? He, in fact, says, hey, there's no problem with coal.
Around the decoupling of plants from the jet, because it's a policy question. So I always make the point, the nationally determined contributions talk to the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions. You are not sitting with a coal problem. You are sitting with an emissions problem. For as long as there's a technology that helps you to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions, the NOxes and the SOxes, then there's no problem with coal. What do the Japanese do? They are co-firing coal with ammonia, and we are beginning to see, we are seeing that their parameters with regards to greenhouse gas emissions, NOxes and SOxes, are significantly lower than our own minimum emission standards. We have seen that with the technology that the Chinese are using. We were just there the other day. The technology that they are using, significant, if you were to retrofit our plants, the emissions level are significantly lower than the issues, our current minimum emission standard. So you are not sitting with a coal problem, you are sitting with an emissions problem. So if you're saying that the extension of operating life of this power station, Mr. Nxumalo just reported to the whole country that as we do that, then we address the issues of the emissions. Because it's not laissez-faire where you just do as you wish. We've got an obligation to the environment and those communities, and we are going to ensure that we are able to address that. There is no decoupling. And the point I want to make, we're talking about additionality. It's about an accelerated exponential increase on renewable generation capacity within the mix and still maintaining your base load, but ensuring that the profile of that base load is such that it doesn't undermine your NDCs.
And then lastly, the minister spoke about a second-hand turbine that has been obtained. And, well, second-hand or not, it's going to be as good as new. I would think it'll bring Medupi's Unit 4 back to service.
And then the other achievement that they will deliver now during this period of when we go into the winter, sometime during the winter, is that is going to bring back Medupi Unit number 4. Back to service after a period of being out of service, I think 4 years or so of being out of service, and they've been able to apply some degree of innovation and ingenuity and getting a second-hand turbine from some part of the world where they are not using it, and now are going to get the full benefit of that. And thanks to Mr. Nxumalo and the team for that foresight. So essentially we'll get approximately 800 megawatts in the middle of winter, an additional that we didn't have over the past 4 years or so. So there has been a structural shift in terms of the minimum flow of the generation capacity that is available. What is a structural shift? You now have Kusile unit number 6, you now have Medupi unit number 4, and then as a part of the licensing requirement, Quebec unit number 1 got that long-term operation license.
Just think about this. It's just over a year now since we moved from extreme load shedding to a position of extreme normality, and then load shedding is an aberration and not the norm. I mean, are you one of those people? It's not me. Are you one of those people who genuinely thought this was all nonsense and come after May 29, that's the end of the great energy and we'll go back to load shedding 101? It hasn't happened. We know that. Were you one of them? Own up. Come on. I want to hear from you. It's your time to confess. Let's get the news headlines. Here's Ondela.
Thank you, Ashraf. On the news headlines, the Portfolio Committee on Electricity and Energy says it has requested the Minister of Electricity to consider reviewing the electricity pricing policy. DA Federal Council Chairperson Helen Zille says that government's Employment Equity Act fails to benchmark test. This as the DA is heading to the North Gauteng High Court tomorrow to challenge the new quotas for employment equity. And US President Donald Trump says he will hit movies made in foreign countries with 100% tariffs as he ramps up trade disputes with nations around the world. A full update follows at the top of the hour with Greg Rose.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the N1 northbound in Midrand is slow moving towards New Road, the N3 southbound in Bedfordview queuing towards Van Buren Road, and the N1 northbound in Pretoria has a stationary vehicle near Garsfontein Road. In KZN, the N3 eastbound queuing through the construction area towards Spaghetti Junction, the N3 westbound is queuing towards Spaghetti Junction, and the N2 southbound has a stationary vehicle reported before Spaghetti Junction. In Cape Town, Coburg Road southbound in Brooklyn queuing towards the N1 Coburg interchange. Highlands Drive in Mitchell's Plain is closed between Marydale and AZ Berman, so expect delays and diversions. And Coburg Road in Maitland has heavy traffic in the central area. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Khapele.
To me, so we spoke about Chiefs Pirates early on, part 2, the return. What are we talking about now?
Well, we're talking about reaching the business end of the Betway Premiership, and Stellenbosch FC coach Steve Barker believes that the battle for the top 3 finish will go down to the wire. Following their commanding 3-0 win over Golden Arrows and Mpumalanga Stadium, steady sit 4th on the table. Sekhukhune United, who drew 1-1 with Magezi, are currently 3rd, just 1 point ahead. And Barker, who led the Steadies to a historic 3rd place and first ever CAF Confederation Cup qualification last season, says that the race is far from over.
Yes, it will. Yeah, no, it'll go to the last game of the season, I'm sure. You know, they're also playing well. They're also picking up results. So, you know, both teams are applying pressure on each other. So I do think that'll go all the way to the wire, yes.
Meanwhile, while Orlando Pirates prepare for a midweek clash against Golden Arrows, rescheduled from February due to a waterlogged pitch, Kaizer Chiefs have a full week to regroup before the Nedbank Cup final on Saturday. And coach Nasruddin Nabi says that he takes full responsibility and is determined to win the final to salvage the season.
I have a sense of responsibility going into the final game, and it's true that we still have the final to save our season, and everybody, players and management and technical staff, they know that everyone has to take that chance to put a smile on the fans' faces.
Meanwhile, the Under-20 Africa Cup of Nations tournament currently underway in Egypt has been rocked by allegations of age cheating, and some coaches have started airing their voices saying enough is enough. First to raise his concern was Tanzania's head coach Hemda Suleiman, complaining about the ages of Sierra Leone players, saying they're not under-20 players.
These are local players. most of them they are playing the second division or first division, comparing to even this team that Sierra Leone. If you see them, they are a little bit bigger than age-wise. It's not under 20 if you see. But we put more effort now to build up this young program, youth program, so that in the future we come up with a good and strong side.
In Olympic news, the Olympic champion swimmer Gary Hall Jr. has been presented with replicas of the 10 medals that he won across 3 games after the originals were destroyed during the Los Angeles wildfires. The 50-year-old received the medals from International Olympic Committee President Thomas Bach during a ceremony, and Hall won 5 gold, 3 silver and 2 bronze medals while competing for the United States at the 1996, 2000 and 2004 Olympic Games in Atlanta, Sydney and Athens respectively. In rugby, while the men's side revelled in the World Championship glory, there was heartbreak for the SA women's side, losing their playoff final in the last minute to Kenya and losing out on the ride for automatic qualification for the newly formed Division 2 of the HSBC World 7 Series next season. Now, the Kenyan women's side beat them 17-14 in the final, ensuring qualification for the Shuja women, but denying the South Africans their spot. They will need to qualify for Division 2 via regional competitions next season, with China, Brazil and Spain progressing because they won their pools, which brought automatic qualification. Then finally, in tennis, world number 1 Jannik Sinner is back on the court this week at the Italian Open, his first appearance since winning the Australian Open. Sinner, who's returning from a 3-month doping suspension, will play his opening match after a first round bye, and he will either face Mariano Mavone or Federico Sina in that round that he will be playing, coming back on the court. I'll be back again in the next hour.
Just quick one. That all-important one-off test final in June, you did make that point that Kagiso Rabada can play in that game.
Yes. So
that is
now
the big topic over the weekend. It's
Yeah.
not like what happened. I know it wasn't performance-enhancing drugs.
Mhm.
It was recreational, but he can play.
Yes.
So that's absolutely certain.
Yes, we are waiting to see. No, we are waiting to see if he will play, but he is eligible to play.
So he's eligible to play. That means they must pick him.
Yes.
If they choose to pick him.
Yeah, I think for me, I'm also waiting to see if Cricket South Africa might just fine him for this. Because, I mean, they lost money.
I think the way they must punish him is like, you know what they must do?
Mm.
Go out and win us that test match. Win that final for us. Come on, man. Show us how good you really are.
The Saints understand it's too late to change things around, but it's never too late to beat defending champions and bow with pride.
He chips the goalkeeper. It's an absolute beauty. It's an absolute beauty from Musa Jack.
However, the citizens are forced to settle for a top 3 finish. They want nothing but 3 vital points.
Magnificent goal. Well, Phil Foden is still in a heap near the halfway line, but credit Andy Madley. He allowed City to continue.
This is the Premier League. Experience the superb battle between Southampton FC and Manchester City FC on Saturday 10 May at 3:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus and S3. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
SAFM has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Under the code, we are committed to giving news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that is not harmful, does not amount to hate speech, or contain violence or explicit sex. If you think we are not living up to that code, then you can inform the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Direct any complaints in writing to the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. PO Box 142365. Craig Hall 2024. Fax to 011-326-3198 or an email to bccsa@nabsa.co.za. For more information, please visit www.bccsa.co.za.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
And let's get to those facts and figures with Makwe Masilela, who's the Chief Investment Officer at Makwe Fund Managers. Goodness, Makwe, it's like the first day of the week for the first time in the month. Like, I'm struggling to get used to it. You've got news on local and global markets. Let's start with news from Astral Foods.
Yes, indeed. That's an afternoon to you and to the listeners. The guys expect profits as headline earnings per share to fall by 60% because of the cybersecurity incident, which saved off almost 20 million rands when it comes to their profits, and also impacted by lower chicken prices and also higher input prices. And Ashraf, the dollar was struggling to hold its ground, even as concerns about the U.S. recession eased just a little, while market participants are waited for the actual evidence of the easing trade tension between the U.S. and China, as opposed to just hints from officials. I guess most investors are now looking for the actual thing instead of the excitement. And in terms of high volatility, smart money doesn't hide under the mattress, but to look at reallocating to less volatile market segments, the likes of private credit. And by the way, Trump imposed 100% tariff on movies made outside the U.S., and oil prices fell after OPEC said they will continue to increase output. Ashraf, prospects of higher supplies and weakening demand weighed on oil prices, which was already nursing steep losses so far in 2025. Brent crude is down 2% at $59 a barrel. Gold traders waiting for the interest rate decision on Wednesday from the U.S., but in the meantime, the yellow metal got a lift from a weaker dollar. It's up 2% at 3,314, and global markets are mixed, with the JSE down 0.4%, but resources are offering a cushion because they're up 2.5%. The rand firmed up 1% against the dollar, 18.28, 24.32 against the pound, and 20.73 against the euro.
Okay, got that. Enjoy your absolute first working week of in over a month, Makwe. Thanks for your time, and we will connect. Struggling to get used to it, understandably. Thank you for that, Makwe Masilela. Right, more to come. We'll get to your calls just now. Certainly want to get your pick on some of the issues we've been speaking about. ANC, DA, but I think that previous call we had just before the news is so important. I'm suggesting that all the parties had to change their policy to be part of the GNU. They didn't change the policy within the GNU. They changed what they promised the electorate. Just about all of them, I would think. Right. Let's talk about the ANC's Fikile Mbalula right after this.
Across South Africa, online and on radio. SAFM, let's talk.
So the ANC Secretary General has been pretty busy. Yesterday he briefed the media in Freedom Park, and we thought let's do this. He raised some really important issues that are worth considering. One, the issue of the budget impasse, the ongoing story, and the other, the ANC's parliamentary caucus. And listen to what he had to say.
Let me explain something about the parliamentary caucus. The caucus doesn't take decisions. I went to address the parliamentary caucus as the Secretary General to convey to caucus the message of the ANC with regard to our approach to the budget impasse, to give them a feedback as well about the road traversed thus far when it comes to the question of the budget impasse. Comrades mostly welcomed that, and comrades did criticize the DA, but politically you must understand that the DA, ideologically and otherwise, is not an ally or in a marriage with the ANC. It is behaving exactly like an opposition. And it is upon the ANC to dispel and actually ensure that we emerge stronger all the time in relation to our project of social transformation. So the Democratic Alliance is an opposition political party. And members of the caucus did raise their views about that particular matter, like all other members of the ANC. But we have explained that GNU is not a marriage between the ANC and the DA. And we have also briefed them that we have agreed that we need to sit down and address some of the anomalies that are happening around the GNU, particularly with regard to partners in the GNU, in particular the Democratic Alliance. With all political parties in the GNU, we have agreed on that. But that said, the ANC must do its work with reduced majority. And South Africans will follow the ANC for the work that it does. The ANC has done good work, which the DA is opposed to. We have brought in the Bella Act. We are implementing the NHI. We are implementing a budget that is pro-poor, a budget that is pro-growth, and a budget that prioritizes social spending. And that's what we're doing in this context. We must not be misdirected by the verbosity and noise of the Democratic Alliance. We must not. They are doing what they are doing because they are in opposition. But the ANC have always said, we will not cower, we will not succumb to their demands that seek to take us back. Can it be on employment equity? They've gone to court. We have said to our government, oppose them. Because employment equity is about our people. We have said we must defend the Bella Act. We have done that. NHI, Appropriation Act. We must defend those going forward. So we are not going backward. And we are not going to allow to be misdirected by the Democratic Alliance as though they are having power over the ANC. The fact of the matter is that we and the DA, we are like milk and oil, or water and oil, and that is it. They don't want our policies implemented of social transformation. We have said that to South Africans when we went to the vote. They can see for themselves. These are the people who say, vote for us because we fought the ANC and defeated them on VAT increase. Even though VAT was being implemented, informed among others by the fact that essential goods and that basket will be expanded. They have not won that war. The following day, they then showed their colors. They opposed employment equity. So that's who they are. Members of the ANC don't think alike within the discipline of the organization. They have raised their own critical thinking. And the organization will continuously engage and make evaluation, including about the GNU itself. And the National Executive Committee is a better place to handle these issues continuously. Yes, people expressed views in the caucus, but caucus is caucus. It takes orders. We brief caucus to give them direction. There is no position of the ANC to undo the GNU. There is no such. If there is, we will communicate it to you. Now, the fact that people in the caucus have raised their views and others ran to the media, they have shown their colors of not respecting their own organization. We don't know what the DA thinks in their own caucus. Anyway, because they are small. But because we are the largest party, they all look upon us. But members of the ANC who have insisted on this, they must be disciplined. They must respect their own party. Leaking information to the media is detrimental to the cohesion of our movement. Because that leakage of information is a distortion. And I've said to the media that, look, there is no caucus that can revolt against the ANC. There is no such caucus. It will never happen. There is no caucus of the ANC that can rebel against the ANC. People have got a choice to join other political parties. Those members of caucus have been disciplined. They took orders from their party and they've raised their views, and we respect their views, even if it is dissent. And I will report to the officials tomorrow. And I will report to NWC about some of the things that comrades raised. And of course, it's critical thinking, but at the same time, is to enhance the ANC standing in ensuring that our hegemony is not eroded within the government of national unity.
There we are. That's the Secretary General of the ANC. He said lots of things. That last part is significant. Our hegemony is not eroded. I mean, what's your understanding of the word hegemony in terms of, political dominance? Perhaps you can come up with your own description of what that means and what is it to retain that. What I want to do is retain the hegemony of you calling in. So you need to call in. I want to get a sense of what your pulse is telling you right now, because you drive the national pulse? And perhaps you can answer that question today. What for you today moves the national pulse? Let's talk about it after this.
Marawai, why did you think you could change your tire when you've never even changed a light bulb successfully? Marawai, why not switch to Santam and get 24/7 roadside assistance to get you moving again? Choose the insurer with cover options that suit your needs. Call 0860 444 444 or SMS cover to 36101. Santam. This is freedom. Santam is an authorized FSP, a licensed non-life insurer and controlling company for its group companies.
As a medical doctor, I've dedicated my life to helping others. Being a regular blood donor, I was shocked to learn of my low hemoglobin levels, which prompted further investigations. My diagnosis of myelodysplastic syndrome meant that my only chance of survival would be through a stem cell transplant. Finding a match was easier for me than for most patients. However, not everyone is so lucky. If you are between the ages of 17 and 55 years, register with dkmsafrica.org to become a stem cell donor and give someone out there a lifeline. This is an SABC-supported initiative.
Call us on 086 000 2032.
Okay, I absolutely need to engage with you. Luvo in Gqeberha. Also want to talk about the GNU. Go for it.
Yes, good day, Ashraf.
Yeah, good day. Go for it. What's your point?
Yes. DA versus ANC. Ashraf, the reason for that. Number one, my opinion. That coalition or GNU was formed without its own policies. Now that's a major cause. That's why they are fighting like that, because ANC, they still think they're in power. That's a problem. And now they still want to implement the failed policies, which where we are, it's because of the failed policies of the ANC. That's number one. Number two, Ashraf, quickly.
Yeah.
The ANC must come out clear. It's not about the DA thing. The ANC must just say it publicly loud that they don't want white people in this country, because they always refer DA as a white party. But they went to CODESA with the white party. They negotiated with CODESA with the white party then. But DA has changed, has transformed. But now they're still confusing the black South Africans as if they are fighting for us as black South Africans.
But let me ask you this. But don't you think that is just the type of political speak that the ANC makes on the one hand, right? And on the other hand, I think we must concede that there are certain policies implemented of the DA that has been impressive, but there's been other policies of theirs that they still come across as rather archaic, and they also need to make a shift in terms of your point about what the ANC, how they address the rest of the nation. The DA also needs to address the rest of the nation in a similar way so that they all hold the middle ground of being there for South Africa. And that applies to the other political parties too. Don't you think so?
Ashraf, you are correct. But now here's the problem. The ANC, they still think they're in the majority. Now, most of the policies are coming from the ANC, which are failed policies. We're in this crisis in this country because of the failed policies. I don't have a problem with their policies 50-50, but now it looks like it's a 80-20. And they still want to, and they think they're in power. You can't come with everything. If we're in partnership, we discuss. You can come with your suggestions and then we discuss. But they don't do that.
Yeah. Point taken. Lubo, thank you for that. Well, look, you know what? You can't deny this point, right? Which is this, that for the better part of 3 decades, 30 years, there's been one party that has run this country, by and large, right? Yes, there's debates about municipalities and the Western Cape, but by and large, one party has run this country. And there are many policies they've got right, and there are many policies implemented they've got wrong. So if you think of this as a business or even like a sports team, who do you hold accountable when many of these things that you implement doesn't work? It is a very valid question. In Frontline KZN, go for it. Hi.
Ashraf, are you? And thank you for taking my call. You see, Ashraf?
Yeah.
Balula, he's so arrogant. The way he speaks. You see, it speaks like the whole of ANC members must just do what they want whenever they feel like. ANC members, they must also remember they believe in the Constitution, they believe in the Freedom Charter, of which they have been disappointed by the same ANC which didn't implement its policies, but it decided to deviate from it so that it can satisfy people who are funding them. So, hey, Umbalula, the way he speaks,
okay.
Traveling first, traveling.
All right.
It's like dictating on people. Hey, if you don't do this, we'll get you out of the door. Hey,
well,
man.
I got that. Well, in Tlantla, thank you for that. Let's leave it at that. Here's a question to all of you, right? That ultimately, if political parties are there to serve, and therefore political leaders are there to serve, and there will be times when a certain party gets more than 50% plus one, as the ANC has had for, in all the previous elections, and sometimes they get less, but I'm not talking about the ANC, I'm talking about other parties too, right? Do you get a sense that there's a lack of humility amongst the political leadership of just about all the parties? They are just so ready to slam each other, and by extension slam the constituencies of those parties. There's very little humility about, like, come on, let's just do this for our country. Don't you find that so absent? I do. I really do. Okay. Let's see if I can get to another call. Lesedi in Vereeniging can go for it. Hello.
Hi, Mr. Kata.
Yeah, good. How's it, man?
Good, and you? Good. My take is with regard to the GNU. You see, for me, when I look at the GNU, particularly the ANC, they still somehow think that they're still in power. But when you look at the GNU, then they would think also that they would have all the power and maybe call the shots. But the reality, Mr. Kara, is that the DA and the other parties, they also form part and parcel of the GNU. And the GNU, my take also, it would be that if I may think that the DA should not leave the GNU. The reason why is because the DA did not get to GNU there. It was not appointed. It was because through the Office of South Africans who voted the GNU, the DA in, and also the ANC. The ANC did not win the election. It's a 40% party, which means now they did not win.
Okay, point made. I think point made. Let's move on. Point made from your side. That I think, in fact, both parties must understand they don't have a majority. They're in a power-sharing agreement, never mind which way we put it, but they don't actually have a majority, and that's the reality. Let's talk about our energy.
How's it, Ashraf? Hope you're well. Just a quick comment with regards to the turbine that has been procured. I'd love to know where it came from. I'd love to know how much it cost. And just a little bit more detail on that would be great. Don't trust Eskom just yet, just given their track record. But I would love to have access to that information and give some peace of mind to the fellow South Africans that our money is not being thrown down the drain. Rich, Somerset West.
Did you say rich? And if you said rich, you know what I'm going to say about the word rich in relation to what you said about money, right? Okay, point taken, Rich. I get your point. And yeah, we certainly need to find out.
Good day, Ashraf. Ashraf, I don't know why the Chiefs fans are so quiet nowadays. What is going on? They must clearly remember that the Nedbank Cup belongs to Orlando Pirates. Nobody else. Orlando Pirates. That's all. This comes from Terence.
Terence, no man, no cup belongs to any club forever. This nonsense about, you know what, we are at the top where we belong. You don't belong anywhere. You deserve that. You earn the right to be on top or not. Why they're quiet? I think the answer is obvious. Kaizer Chiefs are like Manchester United. You can work out the answer to that one.
That's right. I must just say that I am enjoying the show today with the beautiful minds of South Africans coming on your show and voicing their opinions. And I just love it. It's beautiful. But I must just say that one of the things that actually sits right with me is when you explaining that champion South Africa concept that you always, hint on it, but some of us don't really understand what is it about. I feel like maybe if it's something that requires people to maybe join in, because I love the idea behind it and it sits right with me. So maybe one day, Ashraf, you can just come onto the radio and explain that in details, and so that we can all understand what is that. Thank you for a beautiful show yet again. It's Teboho in Great Haven.
All right. Maybe one day I'll have a monologue for 10 minutes and explain it, or I'll be interviewed by someone. You never know. It's been done before, and maybe I will. But just in a nutshell, it is a project based upon people who are committed to building a champion nation, and they champion great causes to try and shift us as a country to where we are to where we want to be. And I think that applies to everyone. And of course, we play outside the political space. Let's get the news. Here's Greg Cross.
Thank you, Ashraf. Parliament calls for review of electricity pricing policy and Trump threatens movie tariffs. Good day to you. Parliament's Portfolio Committee on Electricity and Energy says it's requested the Minister of Electricity to consider reviewing the pricing policy. It says it wants the policy to address tariff hikes in order to protect the poor. Eskom's tariffs for 2025 have increased by an average of 12.74% for direct customers as of the 1st of April, while municipal purchases will increase by 11.32% in July. Committee Chairperson Nonkosi Mvana.
Given the problem of affordability of electricity in the country, the committee called on the Ministers of Electricity and Energy to review the electricity pricing policy to reflect the country dynamics within the electricity sector in SA. The policy is currently being reviewed to align the policy with the broader electricity market reforms. One of the objectives of the review is to obtain a balance between competitive imperatives, that is affordable electricity tariffs for low-income consumers.
The DA's Federal Council Chairperson Helen Ziller says government's Employment Equity Act fails the benchmark test. This is the DA's heading to the High Court in Pretoria tomorrow to challenge the new quotas for employment equity. Ziller argues the new quotas will cut hundreds of thousands of South Africans out of jobs.
Any discrimination that is deemed to be fair has to be proved to be fair. You can't just do anything in the name of redress and claim it is fair discrimination. There's a benchmark that has to be reached to qualify as fair discrimination under Section 9.2. And this Act fails that benchmark test 100%, we believe. And that is the primary constitutional argument that we will be making in court.
The investigating officer in the asbestos roof removal trials denied all allegations of wrongdoing during the extradition process of Mwadi Chilota from the US. He's told the High Court in Bloemfontein that she was properly informed of her rights and given a chance to get legal representation. The former personal assistant to then Free State Premier Ace Magashule is one of 17 accused in the case. Aphumelele Mtatlane reports.
The first witness to take the stand says they informed Cholota of her rights and she was also advised to get a legal representative. The witness said at no point did they make Cholota feel threatened or intimidated. He further told the court that all the documents submitted for the extradition application were obtained lawfully.
Charges against an Eastern Cape mother who allegedly murdered a 65-year-old man who allegedly raped her disabled daughter have been withdrawn. The mother made a brief appearance in the Lady Freya Magistrates Court in the Eastern Cape. Provincial Premier Oscar Mabuyane.
It's important that we understand the human rights, basic human rights properly. So we believe that Umama is not a murderer. She will never be a murderer. I think even God will never think like that about her. A murderer is one who goes intentionally to go and do something horrible like a murder. Umama went all out to look for her child, to protect her child. So we are with her. We're here today to support her. We are so happy that the court has arrived at a decision that the charges are withdrawn and the DPP is actually declining to prosecute.
A woman's made a brief appearance in court in connection with the burning of Kelly Smith's home in Saldanha Bay in the Western Cape. The Vredenburg Magistrates Court has postponed the case to May for a bail profile. The suspect is expected to be charged with arson. The blaze occurred after Smith was convicted along with two co-accused of the kidnapping and trafficking of then 6-year-old daughter Jocelyn Smith. The US President Donald Trump says he'll hit movies made in foreign countries with 100% tariffs as he ramps up trade disputes with nations around the world. He's blamed a concerted effort by other countries that offer incentives to attract filmmakers and studios, which he describes as a national security threat.
other nations have been stealing the movie-making capabilities from the United States. And I said to a couple of people, what do you think? I've done some very strong research over the last week, and we're making very few movies now. Hollywood is being destroyed. Other nations, a lot of them, have stolen our movie industry. And I'm saying, if they're not willing to make a movie inside the United States, then we should have a tariff on movies that come in.
Top story. Parliament's Portfolio Committee on Electricity and Energy says it's requested the Minister of Electricity to consider reviewing the pricing policy. That's SAFM News. I'm Greg Goos.
In sports this hour, Nedbank Cup final tickets sold out. Rabada cleared to play after doping suspension, and IOC replaces swimmers' medals destroyed in LA fires. More details at 5:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, in Bedfordview, the N12 R24 westbound queuing on both routes towards Giluli's interchange, and the N3 southbound has a crash reported near Van Buren Road. The N1 northbound is slow moving towards Garsfontein Road. In KZN, Alpine Road slow moving through Springfield, and Old North Coast Road is closed just north of Columbine Place, and the M7 St. John's Avenue queuing through central Pinetown. In Cape Town, the N2 Nelson Mandela Boulevard outbound queuing towards Hospital Bend. The N1 outbound is slow moving towards the M5 Kuburg interchange, and the M3 Philip Khasana Drive outbound queuing towards Hospital Bend. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
SAFM, leading the conversation.
The Blues and Gold ladies want to treat their clash against the Blue Diamonds like a final exam. They are chasing victory. But the visitors are confident they will prevail and conquer the entire match duration. This is the Hollywood Bet Super League. Witness UWC Ladies FC versus JVW Ladies FC on Sunday 11 May at 2:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus and SABC One. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
If you're active on social media and love SAFM, we hope you'll take a moment to like or follow our SAFM page on Facebook and Twitter. These are the best places to find all the guest information, conversations, and stories you love from your favorite presenters, along with regular updates from SABC News. And don't forget, you can send your questions to feedback@safm.co.za. SAFM, leading the conversation.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
By the way, I know the different religious leaders from the Catholic Church will go into seclusion, as you know, very, very shortly, and begin voting and electing, that's the right word, the new Pope, right? We'll talk about that. Hopefully probably love to do a chat about just the goings-on in terms of how they actually get to a situation where that Pope is elected, and what do you get, the black smoke, and then they get to the white smoke, right? But in the meantime, did you see Donald Trump's tweet at the weekend, effectively posing as the Pope? I mean, seriously, if that was any other leader in the world, how would we respond? Can you just imagine Ramaphosa doing that? Can you imagine a leader from the Middle East doing that? Or somebody else from the African continent, like Ramaphosa, but maybe somebody else too, or an Asian, for whatever reason, doing that? How do you think the world is going to respond? And yet, Donald Trump does what Donald Trump does. Yeah, there we are. Let's talk about another issue that is a huge concern. I picked up the letter coming from the city of Ekurhuleni, and the key part here, it says, pre-dismissal notice, prohibited strike and the blockade of the R21 and 12 and 17 and 3 highways on the 19th of March. You remember that? It was this big issue. We certainly covered it in detail. And the letter, I'm not going to read it all, but bottom line to all of that is, I understand there are some big dismissals with these people who were part or pre-dismissal letters who were involved in what is now termed this illegal strike. 300 EMPD officers were embarked on that illegal strike on the 19th of March. Let's get the story. We'll get two sides to the story here. Let's get the story in a moment or so. We'll get the response from SAMWU. But firstly, Phakamile Mbengashi is the Ekurhuleni spokesperson. Appreciate your time and thanks for connecting to us here on the National Pulse.
Good afternoon, and good afternoon to your listeners.
Okay, I would think as things go in the work of being the spokesperson, this is a very difficult one for you to convince people that what has happened is okay. 300 EMPD officers who now have been issued what pre-dismissal letters. Explain.
Yeah, it is quite a sensitive and difficult issue, but just to give you the correct number, it's 389 EMPD officers have been served with pre-dismissal notices. And basically what that means is that they have 48 hours where they'll be suspended, which after they're going to represent themselves in a disciplinary hearing and have to state their case as to why they should not be dismissed. And just to give context to yourself and your listeners is that what happened was a dismissible offense according to the City of Ekurhuleni human resource policies. As you may know, EMPD under legislation, they are not allowed to go on strike because they're considered essential service workers.
Yeah.
So we would have hoped that this situation could have been avoided. There are multiple platforms within the city, like our local labor forum, where issues can be ventilated and escalated so that they can be resolved.
Okay, so let's understand this. You're saying in terms of their contract with you, because of their essential services, that they cannot go on strike, and they did so, and that alone is a dismissible offense already anyway. Is that correct?
Yes, and other things. You must remember, when they were on strike, they had municipal equipment such as firearms and municipal vehicles. Now, one thing we have to take into account is that when they were striking, they were striking as individuals, and now they had council-owned firearms, which was a huge danger and security risk. But also, over and above that, when everybody signs their code of conduct with the city during their employment, they agree that they'll follow the rules and adhere to them. And on that day and that occasion, that did not happen.
Okay. So, ordinarily, you could have dismissed them anyway, but yet you choose to suspend them first and give them an opportunity to explain themselves. Why so?
Look, as a City of Ekurhuleni, we respect the law, we respect the Labor Relations Act and our policies. So I think it's only fair that people are granted the opportunity to state their case. Some might dispute that they were not there, some might dispute that they were just walking past. So it is important, living in a democratic country, that they do have an opportunity to state their case, and we listen to it, and then from there a decision will be taken.
Okay, so of the 380 odd people, I mean, maybe there's a few cases of people who were not there, one or two mistaken identities, others were just, as you said, walking past, but I mean, that has to be the minority. I think we can safely assume the majority of people were there, right? So what would they say that will convince you otherwise?
I cannot comment to say what they would say. I wasn't part of the strike, and I don't believe I'm appointed to speak on behalf of the officers that were striking. What I can say is that they will be given a fair opportunity, a fair hearing. They are allowed to consult with their labor reps to be part of that meeting, just for someone to accompany them, or they can seek legal advice also, just so that they have a fair and transparent process with the city.
All right, I do understand, and I understand your position, but I'm also saying, in terms of what you said, what they've signed already, they've already fallen foul of that anyway, right? So,
yes.
if the purpose is to give them an opportunity to explain themselves, then is that leaves the door open for them to convince you otherwise not to dismiss them, isn't it?
I'm saying we will work on the merits of their statement and of the hearing, because we can't just assume. Remember, every individual might have a different story, so we have to work on the merits of what takes place within the disciplinary hearing. And over and above that, we have to respond according to our code of conduct, according to Labor Relations Act and our HR policies. So that's how we'll undertake it. I cannot assume or guess what any of the individuals will say, but what I can reassure the public and the residents of Ekurhuleni that there will be a fair, ethical and transparent process. And like we we said during the strike is that as a city, we have to uphold our reputation and make sure that there's consequence management, because we can't have this happening again in the city.
Well, I mean, I can say at the time that it happened, many people may have felt that whereas these workers or the striking workers had a case, many people were absolutely furious that it's essential services that they had seen fit to do what they did and effectively blockade an entire highway. And I think many people were furious. I'm just giving both sides of it. Here's the last thing. I'm going to get the representative from the SAMWU workers in a moment, right? But just one last thing. Have you then engaged with potential trade unions already, or would that come after the event?
Look, straight after the strike, there was a meeting that was convened by the MMC for Finance, the MMC for Corporate and Shared Services, and there was an engagement with the officers that participated in the strike. The city's official labor union, SAMWU, was there. There was a discussion there. However, there's ongoing discussions on this matter. I don't think it's just we issue the letter and then it's done. So we are always open and willing to work with our labor unions, and it's a consultative process. I don't think anybody is celebrating at the moment. Like I said, it's a very sensitive matter, and we hope that what we hope for the most is that there's a fair and a transparent process that is undertaken, and our labor unions will be in consultation and part and parcel of this process.
Okay, let's leave it at that. What we'll do then, Phakamile Mbengashe, thank you for your time, the spokesperson for Ekurhuleni. What we've now got, and you can listen in as well, Phakamile, we've got Nkosana Gold on the line, who's the SAMWU steward, right? Nkosana, appreciate your time. Thanks for connecting to us on the National Pulse.
Good afternoon, Ashraf, and listeners at home.
Thank you. Of course, you've heard Phakamile talk, right? What do you make of it? Yeah.
Yeah, Ashraf, before we continue, let me just quickly correct something here. I am not from the trade union SAMWU. Myself, I am from the trade union MEXU, Municipal Employees and Civil Servants Union. Okay. But however, we do have an interest in this matter, as most or if not all of our members are affected by this decision of the employer.
All right, apology for that.
I'll be talking in my capacity then as the executive chairperson of the trade union MEXU.
Okay, got that. Thank you. Right, so having said that, you've certainly heard what the Ekurhuleni spokesperson said. What is your response?
Yes, in regard to that, Ashraf, yes, this morning we are then informed by members that they have been receiving the pre-dismissal notices so that they can be making representations within 48 hours and state why they should not be summarily dismissed for the incident which took place on the 19th of March 2025. Well, what you are saying, Ashraf, is that the employer this time around has taken a different approach in that under normal circumstances, any other employee who has committed an offense or misconduct should then be subjected to disciplinary processes, be formally charged, so that the evidence would be led and that employee would be afforded an opportunity to then respond to the allegations against them. But in this instance, a different approach was adopted or employed in that they should make dismissal representation.
Okay. Are you surprised at that? Well, why I'm saying that, because you obviously heard Phakamile talk, and he made the point that in fact these are essential services. They've signed a contract. They know they can't go on strike, and they did so.
Yeah, well, we dispute that there are exceptional circumstances in this instance, because this process may be adopted where there are exceptional circumstances in that the employer cannot then employ the normal processes, but because of those existing exceptional circumstances, they should then employ this process. But however, we understood that the issue of the essential service was raised. But now, when we look at that, the government gazette which brought about that, was made sometime in 1997. And when we have to talk about essential service, the interpretation of essential service, it is that it's a service that cannot be disrupted. That should be there 24/7. But in this instance of EMPD, the services of EMPD are interrupted every now and then. And so, for that reason, that service cannot necessarily be regarded as an essential service.
If it's interrupted by who? You're saying it's been interrupted by who all the time?
Yeah. In terms of the collective agreement on the condition of service, which was signed in 2019 by the employer to SALGA and the unions, is that all the employees of this employer Ekurhuleni will be working 40 hours in a week, which then now excludes the weekend. And now also, currently, most of these EMPD officers are not working the weekend. And so, if you look at the interpretation of essential service, it says that service cannot be disrupted. But in this instance, we find a situation where the service is interrupted, and the employer is not necessarily doing anything about it to cover those days in which the service is not provided by these officers. And so it cannot be said to be essential.
Okay, I mean, obviously that is the issue that's going to be debated, not just, between lawyers or, labor brokers or the different unions and representations that will take place, and we'll see what happens, right? But just for now, as you made, this is unusual. You'd expected a disciplinary hearing first, right? What is the morale of the workers that you serve? How are they feeling? What are they saying?
All right, if I can get that again, Ashraf, sorry.
What is the morale? What the workers that you serve, right? Those who have received letters, effectively warning of this pending pre-dismissal. What are they feeling right now? Are they shocked? Are they angry? They're disappointed? Or is it a case of, it'll get sorted out anyway?
Yeah, Ashraf, they are very much shocked by this stance or the action of the employer under these circumstances. Ashraf, what transpired on the 19th, when there's officers, or specifically our members, when they went to Germiston, to actually convey their grievances to the employer. On that specific day, the employer issued an ultimatum. And I would share with you sometime that the scope of that ultimatum, in terms of which this ultimatum provides that they urge all these employees to refrain from participating in any unlawful gathering or strike. And it continues that should these employees choose to disregard this instruction, the employer will not hesitate to take appropriate disciplinary action, which may include summary dismissal. And so the employees complied with this instruction. Soon after it was issued, they then complied with it and went back to their workplaces. Okay. And so the disciplinary action was subject to the employees not complying to this instruction.
Okay, and I take it that's the case you're going to put forward, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, let's leave it at that. In Nkosana Gold, who is the executive committee chairperson of MACSU, which is the Municipal Employees and Civil Servants Union. But as it stands now, what we do know is the EMPD officers, 300 plus, about almost 380 or so, who embarked on what is termed an illegal strike and blocked highways on the 19th of March. They've been served with pre-dismissal letters, and they've got like 2 days to come back and respond to that. Let's see what happens around that. Right, this is the National Pulse. What else do you want to talk about? I mentioned the Pope and Donald Trump. You want to pick up on that, or anything else that you wish to talk about? I see the issue of Israel and Gaza comes to mind once again, where again there's been a clear intent. I don't have the words in terms of saying we want to effectively take over that region. You've got the actual word. You can read it out to me. Let's see what you say. What about the issue of Sudan that we just touched on earlier on? What a mess of a country, and the people, therefore, are affected by that mess of warring factions trying to outdo each other. What for you moves the National Pulse?
Across South Africa, online and on radio. SAFM, let's talk. If you're active on social media and love SAFM, we hope you'll take a moment to like or follow our SAFM page on Facebook and Twitter. These are the best places to find all the guest information, conversations, and stories you love from your favorite presenters, along with regular updates from SABC News. And don't forget, you can send your questions to feedback@safm.co.za. SAFM, leading the conversation.
X at SAFM Radio, and at Ashraf Garda.
Right, now the Deputy President of South Africa, Paul Mashatile, hosted a business breakfast program in Pretoria today. The event was centered around the Transformation Fund. It's a very important issue, right? The Transformation Fund, a proposed 100 billion rand, you got that right, not a million, 100 billion rand initiative to support black-owned SMMEs and cooperatives in promoting inclusive economic growth. I must just tell you, just for the moment, I would have thought that sort of thing in some form or the other may have happened already 10 or 20 times before. Am I right? Just you tell me. But anyway, this is what the Deputy President had to say.
Must get things done. The war rooms must meet regularly to track the work being done and report to the larger war room, which I will convene and report to the President. Ladies and gentlemen, as I conclude, let us use this moment to remind ourselves that transformation and economic justice require dedication, vision, and willingness to challenge the status quo. We can make a real difference in people's lives and create a fairer society through our actions, big and small. This year we are hosting the G20 as explained by Minister Lamola. We will later on, even if it's not this year, maybe next year, we will host the National Dialogue. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this must not be seen just as events, but we must see them as part of our efforts to advance transformation. But more details will be given as we go on about the National Dialogue and also what will happen with the G20. I know that the number of meetings are already taking place. Ministers of Finance have met, Ministers of Foreign Affairs and Trade, and some of the business meetings have also taken place, with the meeting for heads of states taking place in November this year. We are looking forward to a very successful G20 meeting this year, even though the United States said they may not come. But we are proceeding. And we are going to make sure that it's a success. Bayatanda Noma Batand. I therefore conclude, Chairperson, by saying that together we can build an inclusive economy and transform our society. I'm optimistic about our country's future. Indeed, by working together, we will leave no one behind. Minister Tau is quite clear that we probably need more time for these engagements. A breakfast just in the morning is not enough. I can say the speakers are looking at me, Ronaba refill 3 minutes. Because I think we do need time to engage on this issue so that we can concretize these plans and make sure that we focus on implementation. But with those few words, I want to thank you very much. Me and Minister Mantashe would have liked to be here throughout the next discussions when you go into more details, but unfortunately we have to leave. But I wish you all success as you engage further. Thank you.
And there we are. So there we are, 100 billion rand initiative. So my question to you is, have we had other initiatives? It's not a trick question, it's a serious question. Have we had other initiatives like that before, leading industrialists, others around SMMEs? And what has happened to them? I mean, if you have any thoughts about how they've worked out, then let me know. Because clearly this is important. But again, if it's 100 billion rands, where does the money come from? And how will it get measured once again? And in the past, what happened then? If it is done ultimately to give oxygen to growing SMMEs, I think that's fabulous. But on that point, let me just borrow what who said so. The head of the Hanley Business School, he made a point in a book that he's contributed to. I think I did the same thing with a book by Bruce Whitfield, John Foster Padley, and he said, you know what? There's a huge emphasis in growing, in investing in young people to be entrepreneurs. The reality is, if we invested the same amount of money into older people already who've been through work, who are entrepreneurial, there's a better chance they will employ all those younger people and grow the businesses with those younger people into far bigger businesses. It's something I never thought about before, because the big emphasis, young people, entrepreneurs, he's saying, get the experience to be entrepreneurial in jobs with older people who've gone through it all, and the older ones, are ripe to be entrepreneurial. It'll still galvanize the young people of South Africa. Makes you think, isn't it? You tell me what you think about it. Let's get to the news headlines. Here's Greg House.
Quick look at the headlines. The National Police Commission has welcomed a breakthrough in the case of a missing journalist and his partner. Parliament's Portfolio Committee on Electricity and Energy says has requested the Minister of Electricity to consider reviewing the pricing policy. And the International Court of Justice has ruled it lacks prima facie jurisdiction to adjudicate the merits of the genocide claim made by Sudan against the UAE. There's a full update at the top of the hour.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the N1 southbound in Randburg has a stationary vehicle before Malibongwe Drive, and the N1 northbound in Midrand queuing towards Samrand Road. In KZN, the N3 eastbound queuing through construction area towards Spaghetti Junction, and the N3 eastbound has a crash at the M13 Paradise Valley interchange. In Cape Town, the N2 Nelson Mandela Boulevard outbound queuing towards Hospital Bend. The N1 outbound is slow moving towards the M5 Koeberg interchange. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tumi Nkapele.
Right, Tumi, let's talk sport.
Yes, so much to look forward to in the world of sports. Let's start off with cricket. Well, Proteas fast bowler Kagiso Rabada is in the clear to play again, and now he's available to play the rest of the IPL as well as the WTC final. This is after serving a 1-month suspension for a doping offence. Rabada tested positive for a substance of abuse during the SA20 tournament in January and was suspended in April. He accepted responsibility and completed a treatment program, and with that done, he's now eligible to return to the field. Meanwhile, in rugby, the Springbok Sevens team in Los Angeles claimed their HSBC Sevens World Championship title on Sunday, and head coach Philip Snyman believes their performance was a clear indication of what the team is capable of. Snyman was full of praise for his players after they went unbeaten in the tournament. The Blitzboks defeated Spain 19-5 in the men's final, and Snyman says that his team has shown that they are back where they belong.
Obviously, the big thing that was missing was the consistency, and I think this last weekend we pulled everything together, and our whole game came together, and each individual, every player performed. So I think, really, really happy and really proud of the guys, and I'm really, really proud of them.
And then elsewhere, there was online chaos this morning as fans rushed to buy tickets. However, the huge demand crashed the official ticket side. Open tickets just minutes after sales opened at 10 a.m. However, at a later stage, the company says that they had fixed the problem and that tickets were still available in person at ShopRite, Checkers and Usave stores across the country. Meanwhile, still staying with football, Orlando Pirates coach Jose Rivero says that the experience gained from the season's CAF Champions League campaign has been invaluable, particularly for his younger players. Pirates were denied a spot in the final by Egypt's Pyramids FC at the end of April, and Rivero believes that the exposure has been crucial for the team's development. And one thing I can say, Ashraf, is that from here, especially when it comes to Orlando Pirates, they will definitely be looking to build on from this season moving forward, and it probably will definitely be a bonus if they win that Nedbank
If
Cup.
they win. So how big a compensation is winning that cup? Remember, they didn't win the Champions League, right?
Yeah.
Winning the Nedbank Cup, assuming they win it, right? It's no guarantee, but not winning the league and obviously not winning the Champions League.
Yeah, a lot at stake for them, a lot to win. Obviously not as big as the CAF Champions League, but it'll be interesting to see how they're going to do this time around against Chiefs in that Nedbank Cup final.
It can be a galvanizer because nothing makes you more excited than holding trophies, isn't it?
Yeah. Definitely. And it'd be also interesting to see from the side of Kaizer Chiefs, because Chiefs defender Inacio Miguel has vowed that the senior players will carry the pressure of winning the Nedbank Cup final. And this is also Amakhozi's first cup final in 6 years, when they suffered a shock defeat to then NFD side TS Galaxy in the 2019 Nedbank Cup final. So it'll be interesting to see how they do there. Elsewhere, Trent Alexander-Arnold announced that he will leave boyhood club Liverpool when his contract expires at the end of the season, saying that it was the hardest decision of his life. The England right back, who helped Liverpool win the Premier League this season, is out of the contract at the end of June and is expected to join Real Madrid. Now, Liverpool Premier League success sealed with a 5-1 win against Tottenham at Anfield last week and moved the Reds level with rivals Manchester United on a joint record 20 English top flight titles. Talking about Man United, can they win the Europa League?
Well, here's a question that you can ask me. So I saw the Soweto Derby. I wasn't at the game, but I watched it. Tremendous atmosphere. It was really stunning, right? Which, sometimes we do sell South Africa short. And some of the movements of the ball was beautiful, but just the whole atmosphere was magic. Having said that, that's done. We'll talk about the Nedbank Cup at the weekend. But for now, ask me what I'm going to do on Tuesday.
What are you going to do on Tuesday?
I'll watch the Champions League semi-final. Ask me what I'm going to do on Wednesday.
What are you doing on Wednesday?
I'll watch the second semi-final of the Champions League. And ask me what I'll do on Thursday.
What are you watching on Thursday?
I'll watch the Europa League semi-final. Please no appointments. 9 p.m. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
And then Saturday, it's the one between Chiefs and Pirates. Who's going to walk away with 7 million rand? Well, I'll have more on other sports tomorrow afternoon rather.
You better say goodbye. We get complaints if you don't.
Bafana want to seal their envelope to East Africa with a paramount victory in front of their home fans. But the Flames plan to double the heat. This is the second leg of the final round of the Total Energies CAF Chan 2025 qualifiers. South Africa tackles Malawi on Sunday, 11 May at 2:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus, SABC2 and SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC radio stations at 3 p.m. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Right, Jimmy Moyaha's in the hot seat, Jimmy. And of course, I don't know how you're going to cope. I told Makwe the same thing with the first full business week in over a month, right? Having said all of that, here's a good start. Let's talk about an important ratings upgrade.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Good afternoon to the listeners. Yes, it's certainly going to be an interesting week getting back into it after all of the holidays. But today was another holiday, so I don't know if that technically counts. There was a holiday in Japan. There was a holiday in Hong Kong, so those markets were closed. There was also a holiday in the UK, so they had a banking holiday. So not fully trading from a market's perspective, but we are still seeing market movements nonetheless, and we are still seeing markets responding to data that's coming out. In terms of that story around the ratings upgrade, we got a Moody's ratings upgrade for the city of Cape Town, and I've got a conversation with the Cape Town Mayor, Gordon Hill-Lewis, around that and the fact that the budget that's been presented by the city of Cape Town is a budget that hasn't really been received positively by residents or members of the Cape Town constituents that they represent. So we're going to get into that conversation and see what it means from a budget perspective on their side, but also from the ratings side of things, and see if we can make sense of that conversation. Then we've also got a conversation with the team at the South African Reserve Bank. They finally launched their Zaronia initiative. This is, of course, a initiative that they'd been they're piloting now an initiative that they've been putting in place to lessen the reliance on the previous rate methods that we'd been using. So in the past, South Africa has used a particular rates method of measurement for the interbank rates that are used, or the interbank exchange rates. We got into a technical discussion about it a while ago, and I'm going to just kind of see if I can clarify what this whole initiative means and what this rate means, and more importantly, how it's going to affect consumers when they are dealing with financial transactions between banks and even financial transactions with the South African Reserve Bank. So we're going to speak to Saab about that, and we're going to get some clarity around what's happening there and what this initiative is all about. And then we've got a conversation as well with the guys at Sanlam Investments around the investor sentiment that's currently out there in the market amidst all of the tariff conversations and the VAT reversal conversations. Of course, we know we've got that budget speech coming around the 21st of May, and we'll of course be covering that as well. But in the meantime, markets have had kind of a reaction to the news that's come out and then not come out, and then the news that's been recalled, and you've seen a lot of volatility in the markets. I mean, the Rand, for example, is at 18.29 against the US dollar after having almost touched 20 Rand a couple of weeks ago. So it's been quite an interesting time, and we're going to just reflect on how those market movements have been affecting investor sentiment with the team at Sanlam. And then we wrap up the conversation with our digital drive. We are alternating this out with our personal finance segments on Monday. So every other Monday is the digital drive. This week we're looking at the first solar EV charger that's been set up in South Africa. Interestingly enough, the company that set it up, a company called Charge, chose the city or the town of Wolmaranstad to put that up just outside Klerksdorp on the N12. And our resident tech specialist and EV specialist Nafisa Akabor joins me to take a look at this, because she drove all the way from Johannesburg to Wolmaranstad in an electric vehicle to go and charge her vehicle there and get an experience of what that is like. So that's going to be quite an interesting conversation to take a look at and see what we unpack from that perspective, whether or not South Africa is ready for electric vehicles and what the infrastructure capacities look like. But before we get to all of those conversations, the markets have had a quieter day, as I said, with some of the markets being closed, the likes of the Hong Kong Hang Seng being closed, the Shanghai Composite also not having a data come through today, and the Nikkei in Tokyo, of course, for the closure that's happening there in Japan as well. So Asian markets, the only real market to report on there is the ASX in Sydney, which was down almost 1%. If we look at European markets, they were a bit of a mixed bag in that the DAX was up 1%, whilst the CAC 40 in France was down 0.4%. The FTSE would not have been trading, as I said, banking holiday in the UK. Our own local markets were trading, resources up 2.8%, but industrials down 1.2% and financials down 0.9%. As a result, the all share down 1/3%, and the top 40 down 0.25%. The currency side of things, the Rand, 18.28 at the moment against the US dollar, 24 Rand 30 cents against the British pound, and 20 Rand and 70 cents against the euro. 1 Australian dollar, 11 Rand 83. 1 Bitcoin, 93,000 odd, just under 94,000 odd dollars per coin, or around 1.7 million Rand. We haven't yet hit the 2 million Rand mark. I will keep you updated on that, of course. The Brent crude price, I'm pleased to report, has dipped below $60 a barrel. It's currently at $59.78 a barrel. And remember, when I spoke about this one last week, I said that if we go towards the $50 a barrel level, we would be retesting that level that we haven't really gone back to since March of 2021. So 4-year lows on the Brent crude price, which is always good for the petrol price, which is coming down this week, but only by about 20 cents. I want to see how the Central Energy Fund is now going to be pricing the next petrol price movement, given that the Rand is recovering as well. But the gold price at the moment, $3,316 a fine ounce. Platinum and palladium, $960 and $943 odd dollars respectively. So still below $1,000 in that case. We're going to look into these matters when we come back a little later on. For now, Ashraf, back to you.
Okay, perfect. So enjoy your show 6 to 7 tonight, and a very different sound to it, considering it is that first full business week in over a month and a bit. And I wonder how all of us are going to cope doing just that. How are we going to cope with your views and your comments and your sense of what is it that moves the national pulse, and how you connect to the pulse of a nation every single day is what I'm going to find out next.
You are listening to the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
Okay, lots of comments. So what you can do, you can tweet, by the way, using that hashtag the National Pulse. Please do. Then tag SFM Radio, tag me, Ashraf Garda. And that's the one option. The second option, you can text me via WhatsApp, which is a pretty quick way to do so. You can do that right away. And you should have that WhatsApp number. But let me give it to you if you've forgotten about it, because you need to save it permanently. Let me get that number for you in just a moment. Okay, I'll get that to you now. Then the other option, of course, is you can call in live, right? So, those are the different options you've got here on the National Pulse. So first things first, let's get to Vuyo in East London. Hi, Vuyo.
Hello, Ashraf. I'd like to say two things about the GNU.
Yeah.
Firstly, people forget one thing. The ANC and the MK party make up more than 50% of the vote. If you include the EFF, I think it comes close to 60. So which means those three black parties can form a government. But because we black people hate each other, we prepare to form a coalition with a white party. That is problem number one. The problem number two, which also I want to mention, people forget very quickly, the DA is in a dilemma and is doing irrational things because it did not form a coalition with the ANC because it wanted. White capitalists forced it. The DA formed a unit with the ANC to prevent the ANC from forming a coalition with the MK. That was said openly. That was the purpose. So the DA would like to remain an opposition party, but at the same time would like to prevent the ANC and MK parties forming a government.
Well,
that's why every time, time they threaten of going out, they are forced that if you go out, the ANC will move to the MK. So that coalition is an anti-black coalition or an anti-MK and EFF and ANC coalition. The DA is not there because it wants to do us a favor. That's what I want to say.
Okay.
You want to say something?
Yes, I'm going to say to you that, yes, you're right about the fact that the DA will not want to lose or leave the GNU because they have leverage being part of the GNU. And the same with the ANC. They can't not have the DA with them. There must be some dramatic change because the two of them, even if they argue, they have leverage to work together, right? That's number two. And number three, I don't think it's because they hate. I think this thing about they hate white people or they hate black people, I think that's out. I think what it is here is they're all just strategically political and they want to get into spaces. So on the one hand, you're saying the DA wants to be in power as like a white party, but then you're also saying that the black parties hate each other. I'm saying to you, it's not about they hate each other. They hate each other not because they're black. They hate each other because, well, I don't say they hate each other. They all politically position themselves to be in leadership and they will try and eliminate the opposition. And if the opposition is the DA, they will try and minimize their impact. If the opposition is, for example, the EFF and you're the ANC, they will do the same. Do you notice the fact? One can be a predominantly white party, one can be a predominantly black party. It really doesn't matter. Yeah, go for it.
Can I say, Ashraf?
Yeah.
I was saying that I've been in this world for more than 60 years. Mm-hmm. That is my experience with black political parties and black people. We prefer to share things with white people rather than together. And white people are prepared to get. Look at it with Francis. It said if the DA loses a power in the Western Cape, they will form a coalition with them. So why are because MK and EFF are offsprings of the ANC. Why can't they work together? They're fighting each other all the time.
All right.
Even in Tata, no Zuma, no ANC, the MK are not prepared to fight. They both prepare to work together with white people rather than with other blacks.
Okay.
This has been my experience in
all
this
right.
world.
Let's move on. But I will say this much. As someone who believes in a non-racial world, right, there are 100 examples of white parties that dislike each other. Just look at USA as an example. You can apply the same principle in South Africa. There are predominantly white parties that also disagree with each other. So it's not simply a color issue. Parties disagree with each other, bottom line. Vuyo, but you've certainly got us thinking. That I can tell you now, for sure. So thanks for calling. Max in Welcome. Go for it, Max.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Yeah, you see, Ashraf, for me it's problematic what the stance that the DA wants to adopt. Because you see, they allow the ANC to be the one that invites them into the GNU. So from that point, then they gave the ANC the leadership of that GNU. So they cannot all of a sudden now after having been that to come and sign to say no, they own half of the GNU. They own about 20%. They keep on saying the ANC has got 40%. They have got even less. They got half.
All right,
they cannot hammer about to say the ANC does not own that, does not own this. They were invited by the ANC. They allowed them to be the leaders.
I think you do raise an important point that the first meeting of inviting parties to the table was from the ANC side. And the DA could never do it any other way because there's no way they could have invited the EFF and the MK party to get those numbers. We know that. We just know that. Okay, Max, I tell you what, again, I always tell people when I meet them, and I met a lot of people over the weekend in different environments to listen to the show, I said, you know what, we've got callers here who always get us thinking. Sometimes we agree, often we disagree, 100% the callers get us thinking. So you play such an important role in effectively framing what I call the national pulse. Remember that.
Do you want an experience of a lifetime? Where every day is filled with challenges of providing Lisa Vanderpump curated experiences while dealing with rivalries, romances, and misadventures. It's drama at Vanderpump's French Estate. Chantel Rosabelle and the staff can't wait to give you a front row seat to all the drama. Catch Vanderpump Villa, Saturdays on S3 at 8:30 p.m. S3 open up.
Save and win a car with Spar for real. Stand to win one of 50 fiery red Hyundai Grand i10 sedans. Buy any participating products and swipe your rewards card to enter. Get 450 gram Bacoma Wheat Bix original only for $24.99 plus 50 megs free data on Spar Mobile. Or 200 gram Baker's Murray biscuits. Buy any two for 30 Rand plus 50 megs free data on Spar Mobile. Price is valid until 19 May while stocks last. T's and C's apply.
This Thursday on EFC, Africa's greatest meet the warriors of Brazil on a night where 3 titles will be contested. Amanda Lino takes on Mariana Salles, Willie Van Rooyen takes on Kleberson Sousa, and in the main event, JC Lamprecht goes to war with Luis Paulo Picanso for the light heavyweight title. EFC 123 live from the World Sports Betting Arena. Watch it on SABC Sport Channel on DTT Channel 4 from 7 p.m. Brought to you by SABC Sport.
Call us on 086 000 2032.
And I mean, to make the point here, we got someone by the name of Thoughts Rhyme tweeting saying, it's very interesting, Ashraf, how some of your listeners see the world. Well, and you're part of that, listeners, and how you see the world. That's why I'm saying to you, add, in many ways, each one of you adds tremendous value to what we call the National Pulse. Mike in Newlands, go for it, Mike.
Thanks a lot, Ashraf. Yeah, I was listening to Aldrin, with your predecessor, some time ago. Well, it wasn't that long ago, and he had Thulas Nesi, I then called him Minister of Unemployment, on the show. Yeah. And he interviewed him, and he asked him, he said, look, what happens in Mpumalanga if you've got so many white people, so many black people, so many colored people, and so many Indian people, and the guy's got too many Indians in terms of this new Equity Act? What must he do? If another Indian comes along and says, I would like a job, and he's got the skills that the employer needs. Thulas Nesi said to Aldrin, he said, no, you can't hire him. He must go somewhere else. So Aldrin then said to Thulas Nesi, the minister, well, what happens then if he goes to another company in Mpumalanga and he still can't get a job because they've also got too many Indians? So he was told then, by Thulas Nesi, he must move. Now, Ashraf, I wasted so much of my youth fighting this National Party government to get the ANC into power. And I struggle having these conversations on radio. I was talking about the other day, I was listening to two cricket teams, the Warriors and the Dolphins. They had 3 black players. They should have had 2 and they only had 3. Sorry, they had 3, but one didn't pitch or something, so they got fined 500,000 Rand. Now, look, I've given up with the ANC, and this we've got more race laws on the books now than we did under apartheid, I'm told by the experts here.
All right, so let me just push you quickly. Just 2 things. One is your point that you struggled and you wasted a lot of time fighting against the Nats. I don't think that's a waste because you actually fought against apartheid. That's what you did. It's not about the ANC. It's about so that's important. Now, bottom line, I've got 30 seconds to get your point here. I heard the examples you made, and I'm sure people can identify with those examples and say, you see how ridiculous this is. What's your bottom line out of this? Just in 30 seconds.
The bottom line is, Alden, our unemployment has gone through the roof. Do we think we're going to create one job doing this? No, I don't. And I go along with the black gentleman that was on, I think, your show the other day. He was insulted by the fact that he has to have legislation made to protect him because he's black. Because once he gets a job, I think he worked for a financial institution, people look at him as he thought they got the job because he's black, when in fact he was heavily qualified for it.
All right.
That is the most racist thing, and that's why I'm fighting.
Okay, thank you for that. And there we are. You've made a point. And again, I would say this much. You've got us thinking. And from Mike we go to, and I'm not kidding you, we go to Marvelous. Really, it is the world, right? Marvelous in Durban. Hi.
Yes, hi, Ashraf. How are you?
I'm good indeed. Right, go for it. What's your point?
Ashraf, I don't know that I'm the only one who's noticing this. Our deputy president is very active, unlike his predecessors.
You mean he's more visible than previous deputies? Yeah.
Yeah, it's very visible, unlike the previous ones.
Okay, what do you deduce from that? Like, why do you think that may be the case?
I think that's why there was an incident where he almost got shot, because maybe that doesn't fit well to other people rather.
Okay, well, okay. Thanks for raising that point. Interesting. Paul Mashatile, is he busier and more visible than so many other political deputy presidents of the past? Think about it, including, say, for example, Thabo Mbeki, that comes to mind, or Jacob Zuma. Who am I missing out on some of the others too, right? Okay, here's some comments.
Ashraf and the SFM listener. Ashraf, you see these tender things. I think DA can coach in the ANC because they're listening only to the DA. The person who ever have a tender is supposed not to have any tender anymore. So to give other people a space, not like, individual is an engineer of building, engineer of, farming, everything is just about those people. They know everything, but they never even went to school for that.
Well, there we are. Listen, to win a tender is not illegal. And once you win one and you can win another, who's going to say no? I'm just asking that question.
Ashraf and Peter, some respect. Ashraf, your previous caller spoke about that. We're in this mess because of the ANC policies that they implemented. They put us in this mess. I don't think so. I totally disagree with that. If ever there are policies that he feels that put us in this mess, he should have at least mentioned them, other than just saying, blankly saying there are issues. There are no other issues except corruption, but the policies are fine. That's why they're part of JNU DA, because they support those policies. So your caller must come here and be specific. Thank you, Skitch, and my respect.
Yeah, but maybe sometimes there's not enough time to do that. But I get your point. Policies overall, the ANC of now and the ANC of Nelson Mandela are very similar. There's been some changes. It's the implementation of the policies and the workability and the operational issues that's got the ANC into all sorts of trouble.
Hi, Ashraf. Your listener here in PA. I agree with Max. Let us not listen to the noise that the DA is creating, trying to, what do you say this now, separate us, to try to break the people of color's unity. We need to think back to 1994 and be that united. This thing of the DA trying to break us and bring ideas, and yet they are opposed everything that stands for the black person or people of color, it's wrong. We should not accept that. And as a person, people of color should not vote for the DA.
Well, maybe you should tell people who they should vote for, because I think people are battling with really good choices. We've got about a minute and a half. I'll try and play 3 clips here. One of them is of Helen Zille.
Hi, Ashraf. Sfiso here. I'm actually a new caller in SFM. Just on the remarks of Helen Zille, I find it funny that she would reference when she talks about how he has decimated jobs in South Africa. She would start off by mentioning that since 2008. I mean, we all know what was happening in 2008. I think the world lost over 30 million jobs because of the financial crisis. So I'm not sure what the relation is between trying to make sure that we have representative at the highest levels in different companies. What does that have to do with job creation? I haven't seen a study from a credible institution that has linked the two.
Okay, well, thanks for calling for the very first time, CP. So welcome to the show and keep on doing it. Love to engage with you further, right?
Good day. The foreigner, they phoned from Cape Town saying that the DA must be expelled from the GNU and fresh elections. Foreigners must just stay out of our business. It's got nothing to do with them. Even if they stay in this country, they must stay out of our business.
I don't know about that. I would hate to think that we're that xenophobic, where foreigners, documented foreigners, have got nothing to do with this country. I would just absolutely hate to be a part of it. Here's the last one.
We voted the GNU. Let them finish their term, 5 years plan. Then we're going to see the improvement on the road construction, water supplying, the pipe system, not trucks, and the electricity improvement. Let them finish their term because we vote for them. They are there because of our votes. Tusi from Inand. Bye.
Well, thank you. You're right. So it's not a case of 5 more years. It's 5 years. What can you do? 5 years. And it's counting. Well, that's the show. Wonderful that you're connected with us all throughout the last 3 hours. We'll do it again tomorrow. Remember that. Appreciate all the input, all the support. Really been fabulous to engage with you all throughout the show. So to come up, we're going to have, of course, Jimmy coming up with the markets update in a moment. Then we have Michael Abramson with sport from 7. Then from 8 to 10, we've got a cracking show. And 10 to midnight, another cracking show. And then we do it all again tomorrow morning. This is the National Pulse. Here's Greg Host with the news.
Thank you again, Ashraf. Breakthrough in missing journalist case in Parliament calls for review of electricity pricing policy. Good evening.